home interactive weekly GeekCon, all blended with wit, sarcasm, and a pub-like atmosphere. We're adults talking about adult topics and using adult language. We laugh and make jokes about almost everything. We don't intend to upset, but some folks have their feelings hurt easily. This is all done in humor in the style of the great offenders such as George Carlin, Red Fox, Lenny Bruce, Richard Pryor, Robin Williams, Wanda Sykes, Sam Kinison, George Lopez, Lisa Lampanelli, Chris Rock, almost everything. We don't intend to upset, choice. Sit back, relax, and get ready to enjoy yourself in the company of great people, hot toddies, and guests alike, because here we come.
Put that long day behind you. Good times lie ahead. With company worth keeping, that'll bash a smile in your head. Come on in, the door's open. You'll find just the finest folks here. Pull up a chair, grab a drink, and lend our stories your ear. Cause we're the talk the tavern. Here you're always welcome. The talk the tavern. Promising beer and bedlam. The talk the tavern. Music, medicine, then some. The talk the tavern. The song's over. Here we come.
And welcome to May 3rd's episode of Talk of the Tavern. My Twitch exploded. Hold on, I'm going back. That's not the name of it. It's transferring.
Is that a medical problem?
Maybe. I haven't had it looked at. Hold on, let me... So during the intro music, you suddenly heard the intro music double up, and that's where we're talking about. If you're going to watch Twitch, mute Twitch, because otherwise, you get double the sound, and it's 20 seconds apart. Okay, let me introduce folks. I'm going to start with the lovely co-host of my life, Andrea.
I had to get off mute. Hi, everybody.
It's like a drug habit.
Lots of coffee today.
That's like a drug habit, too.
Coffee.
Getting off mute. No? Hi-ho.
It's Kermit.
What
It's
else?
just coffee right now.
That's it? Okay.
Coffee.
Okay. Anything
Lots
else?
of it.
Okay. And then we also have the industrious and infamous Moeller.
Hello. I'm Mo. I'm going to be drinking Pepsi with real sugar because it's the only kind in my house right now. Way too much of it in our house right now, but that's beside the point. I think we're doing our full introductions here. So
Yeah.
I have I am currently a graduate student. I have a degree in applied mathematics, a degree in religion, and then a degree in mission analysis engineering. So going into this with a whole lot of mathy background, but I also have 7 years experience as a graphic design and graphic artist. So coming to this with a strange point of view. But
a good one, then.
It's a good one all the less. So I'm happy to be here, like always.
Next on our list of awesome, we have Ashley Rogers of, well, you carry on about yourself.
Hi, Ashley Lauren Rogers here. I use she, her pronouns. There are a lot of things that I've done. Basically, right now, I am most known as a playwright in New York City. I've had shows that have premiered throughout New York, throughout Massachusetts. I've done solo shows in Detroit, in Wisconsin, in... Where else have I done them? I don't even know. Just throughout the country, basically, at this point. And I'm also everything from a box office worker to a trans rights advocate, a stand-up comedian. I own my own podcast called Is It Transphobic? And basically, if there's a job that has been
SCOWL.
open, I've probably tried it.
SCOWL.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Thank you. No, I appreciate you keeping me. I appreciate this, Travis. So the big thing that I'm pushing right now is tomorrow we are launching an Indiegogo campaign for a new show in Brooklyn over in July called SCOWL. I have no idea if that's flipped.
No, you're good.
Yeah?
It's good graphics.
Okay, great. Because it is flipped on my camera. We are launching that. It is a action-packed, queer-centric fight show. So it's a stage combat show centered around a sort of WWE Glow or Lucha Underground style storytelling structure. So there'll be lots of steel chairs. There'll be lots of promos, over-the-top campiness, and it's all part of the Trans Theater Fest at the Brick.
Hey, let me ask you. Sorry to
Yeah.
not push Silas in front of the camera, but Ashley. So once you have this done, are you going to record it? Is it going to be on YouTube or available on DVD or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. The intent is hoping to serialize it both in live form as well as on YouTube. So it'll be available on YouTube for people. So if you're outside of New York, if you're from another country, if you're anywhere, we want you to be able to see this. We want you to be able to experience it.
Here's what I want.
So, yeah.
I want, like, after you complete the Kickstarter and succeed and you're heading towards it like the week before, I want to get you and maybe 3 of the other wrestlers on the show in character to just bitch and argue at each other for an hour or 2. Huh?
I would love that. Let me coordinate that. But you know what? I think that's doable.
Yeah, down the road. I mean, how fun would that be? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Absolutely.
We saved the best for last. The person who I have no idea anything about because we just met. Here's the incredible, and don't let me down on that one, Silas.
Hi, I'm Silas. I live in New York City. I'm a writer. I do my own original science fiction and fantasy, as well as essayist, primarily for Tor.com, which covers science fiction, fantasy, and all related subjects. So I have a weekly column there at the moment. I also am an actor, and I am also a cast member of SCOWL, in which I play Kyle Oren.
He is a force to be reckoned with.
He is.
A force
You
of
guys.
nature or just a force?
Just a force, I think.
Use the force.
There's reason to there's ability to grow then.
Yeah, well, he's hoping to level up. He's a very ambitious
Nice.
person.
Andrea, where in New York City does Elizabeth the Pickle Lady live?
Jackson Heights.
Jackson Heights. Are either of you familiar with Jackson Heights?
I feel like I've definitely heard of it.
It's in
I don't think I've
Queens,
actually
right?
been to Jackson Heights.
We
but
live
it's
in
like,
Brooklyn. It's far away. That's like being in 2 states over.
You know,
It may be in Brooklyn. I don't know.
No,
Andrea?
Jackson Heights isn't in Brooklyn.
Jackson Heights is in Queens, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's far. Jackson Heights is far away from us.
The only reason I
So
mention
for people,
it is Elizabeth is one of our regular co-hosts on Monday night, and she is a playwright, filmmaker, or I should say scriptwriter, filmmaker, etc. And I'm just like,
And a teacher.
I am third-party networking for all of you, going, you know, if this,
appreciated.
yeah,
And a pickle maker?
And a pick.
No.
Is
You
it
said
no?
pickle maker.
Hers is
You
Pickle
like-
Pickle
Lady.
Man Productions. Pickle Man Productions.
Oh,
Andrea, do you want to
okay.
do you want to tell everyone a little bit about Pickle Man then? Why the
Me?
name? Well, yeah,
Me, the one with the bad connection
Okay,
where I
okay.
freeze up.
Okay, I'm interrupting now. So Elizabeth has a few shorts out, and she calls it family-friendly horror. And so there's like pickle zombies from space. There's Picklezilla or Dillzilla, where you know a 50-foot pickle attacks a city, and so she makes kid-friendly horror movies, and that's where Pickle Man comes in.
Ah.
So that's all.
That sounds amazing.
And
Amazing.
she has a great time with it.
Anything
I'm
starring Pickle Man. Anything starring Pickle Man is kosher for all ages.
There you go. Yeah, and she will like carry around a pickle puppet, and yeah, and it's adorable. It's great. She's talented. She's expanding. Well, like all of us, she's doing the work, and
And she's hilarious.
there's that.
So you would say that she has a Vlasic style of humor?
You were just waiting.
I really was.
Oh, thank you, Talking Toey. Now, Talking Toey just joined us in the chat on Twitch. Talking Toey is also an author, a game creator, a Twitch streamer, and with Mo, myself, Talking Toey, and Mo's mother, we actually made our own card game called Awkward Compliments.
I just started Toey's book yesterday.
Prickle Man. He mistyped instead of Pickle Man, put Prickle Man. That's a whole different movie.
God.
Are you sure that's a mistype coming from Talking Toey?
Prickle Man always gets to the point. No? Nothing?
Really? Quick, Silas, you talk. Yeah, I know. That's how
I don't
feel.
have to talk. That's okay.
Yeah.
I've been dismissed. I'll go.
Thank you for the cheer. A Freudian typo, probably. Could be. Oh, I know. I got to introduce myself. I'm Travis, the host of the show, and my vices today is I have an obsidian cigar and some brandy and some coffee, and of course my standard water jug over here. So it's good to be
You're
viced.
filling up the tank.
It's plenty of liquids, that's for sure. It's the last of my brandy, which I'm glad I don't have a show tomorrow because I'd have no brandy for it.
Oh.
I'd have to leave the house and buy some. It's horrible.
Oh.
So now we are going to ramble on a little bit for a few more minutes because I want to give a chance for more viewers to get in. And now, Ashley, Silas, just so you know, there have been times I have had over 200 people watching the show. And there's other times it's just us. So it varies. Now, the good news is for anybody who misses it, it will be up on YouTube as well as in the highlights of Twitch. So it will still exist, and there'll be a link to spread around so other people can enjoy our silliness. I mean, be educated by us.
In all seriousness.
Do you
The
remember?
same thing.
Yeah. Do you remember Yahoo Serious? Whatever happened to him? Nobody remembers.
He got crazy.
Oh.
I know. That's another one, like Jackson Heights, I'm familiar with. I just don't know why.
Young Einstein in the early 90s was the only movie I ever saw this Australian actor in. And
Because that's the only one he's done.
possible.
Well, then Mickey probably has it.
Hold on,
I'm looking up Yahoo Serious.
and I'm looking behind Silas at the art on the wall. Is that a mouse on your shelf? Oh, you don't have to shift.
I
It's like-
don't know. I have a lot of stuff on my shelf. Not a mouse, I hope.
no, between.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
this?
Nope, all
Nope.
the way to the right. More to the right.
Over more.
That.
thing.
What is that?
This is their bookends that look
Oh,
like
okay.
the towers from
That's
Lord of the Rings.
cool.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. So you do medieval fantasy? Is that what I understood in your intro there?
I do fantasy and like light science fiction
Uh-huh.
kind of thing, like the more fantastic side of science fiction.
I like it.
A little bit of horror.
Okay. So have you published?
I have one published story out right now. It was in Lightspeed magazine several years ago,
Nice.
and it was called "My Teacher, My Enemy."
Ooh.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the horror piece.
Oh,
It's a good one, too. I
Yeah,
can
well,
vouch for that one.
We also recorded. We did for our Patreon supporters for "Is It Transphobic," which I've also been on with Ashley. We got an actress friend in to do a recording of it, which was really, really fun.
nice. And actually, I'm curious about the podcast. Is it transphobic?
Yeah.
First of all, how
We watch it,
the
so
pod-
you don't have to.
Yeah. the essentially the motto is exactly like Silas says, we watch it so that you don't have to. It's
I'll throw a couple questions and then you go and just expand wherever you will. I'm curious how often it plays. Do you have other topics besides is it transphobic? And then the whole mood and setting. So, kind of the basics is what I want to know, but roll on.
Yeah. Admittedly, unfortunately, I kind of took April off, so I'm trying to restart immediately into May. But generally speaking, it's twice a month. We try and do it sort of like the first Thursday of the week. So ideally, it would have come out today, but we're probably going to push it a little bit just because I've been so wrapped up in trying to get SCOWL.
Talk of the Tavern rebranded for one day only as is it transphobic? There you go.
Yeah.
Put it on YouTube.
Done. No. But yeah. So it's ideally it's out twice a week or twice a month. And the idea of it is we try to make the focus on one piece of media. So far, it's mostly been television and movies. Silas and I did a review of Neil Gaiman's Sandman at one point. But for the most part, it's talking about them in the context of, okay, we're a bunch of trans and non-binary folks. is this piece of media transphobic, but also is it enjoyable? Because sometimes it can be both.
Now,
And
I'm curious if if trans isn't used at all in the movie, referenced, touched on, there's no trans characters, etc., would you consider that transphobic?
it could still be very easily. And there are definitely a lot of topics, because I think the way that a lot of people look at this stuff, like with trans representation, et cetera, the word doesn't often get used or thrown out or stated. But there are a lot of cases in history that we can look at and say, like, okay, they might not have used these words, but I mean, Mount Everest has existed before people found it. It's not like it just showed up when people discovered it.
Right.
So in what way can we talk about this in a way that says, like, all right, could this have been a trans representation? Maybe, maybe not. If we are looking at it from that lens, what is this saying about the trans representation? One of the big cases that I actually love, one of my favorite episodes of it, is To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar.
I was going to ask about that.
I love that movie.
It's a great movie. I still love it. There's some problematic elements to it if we look at it from a trans lens, but it's also interesting because none of them identify as trans, but they all kind of are never not their characters.
Right.
They are who they are constantly. And so there is, and especially because historically, a lot of trans folk have found power through the drag community. Not all, not everyone, but a lot of particularly trans women have. And because that was a space where a lot of trans women could sort of use their femininity and explore that. And as a safer space, particularly in the 80s into the 90s, it might not be as much of a jump to think some of these characters are probably trans and also drag queens.
You see,
Well, the thing about the movie that I liked is that they used some really manly men like Wesley Snipes and Patrick Swayze to play these. So, yeah.
see, I have seen plenty of movies which in the past were great movies, even supportive of whether it's women's rights, black rights, etc. But if we look at it now through where we have advanced to as a society, we're like, wow, that's really kind of prejudice, isn't it? But on the other hand, thank goodness it was there, because it was a stepping stone to bring us from point A to point G, and we're still going forward. So now, yeah,
You got to start somewhere.
but and that's a mixed bag.
Yeah, I mean, and there's definitely something to be said about these things helped bring about the conversation. These things helped bring about this other thing. Like, honestly, Silence of the Lambs was huge for how it represented cis women, particularly in positions of power in government,
Right.
Or rather in like the FBI, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, it has a hugely transphobic element to it.
Yeah.
That said, is it a bad movie? No, it's a damn good movie. But it's, you can't unlink them kind of when you start thinking about it and thinking about the representation. And if there was better representation out there, maybe it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But the fact is,
I agree with you. Absolutely, it wouldn't have been a big deal at all. And if we just take cis white males, we have villains, we have heroes. There's representation. So when they're a villain, you're not like, oh no, this is horrible, because you got plenty of good guys that look exactly like that bad guy. In a broad spectrum. He dyed his hair anyway, so whatever. So yeah, I understand that, and again, it's hard for me to condemn historic stuff. It's easy for me to look at it and go, okay, we couldn't do this. Now, Blazing Saddles is a great example of a lot of people like, oh, well, we couldn't do Blazing Saddles now because everybody would be offended. I'm like, well, don't watch Quentin Tarantino, but okay, I'll say you're right.
I mean, I would make the case, and it's a very different movie, very different message, very different in general, but I almost feel like Get Out is kind of in that vein of Blazing Saddles, where it's subversive. It's something that's taking a genre that is normally looked at from a lens of almost like no other lens but this genre, and forcing sort of the idea, this is about this is about race, this is about what we're talking about, and it's very, like, it cannot be about, you can't do Get Out as white characters.
I haven't
There's
seen
no way.
Get Out. Am I missing
It
something
is
good there?
also hilarious. It's probably one of the best thrillers I've seen. It's very funny. It's totally worth your time, effort, and money to watch.
Okay.
But it's one that, like, and again, like, different. Like, you can't look at Get Out and think Mel Brooks because they're very different styles. But at the same time, it's that same idea of like, oh, so to me, I kind of look at something like that and say, well, we could, but what would Blazing Saddles look like today? I don't think it would look like the weird, like, oh no, there are no real jokes in this anymore hellscape that a lot of people think it would. I think it would just be different jokes.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's and there's movies out there like that still do the jokes. It's also a different feel. You know, what we were trying to accomplish with a movie like that, what Mel was trying to bridge, mock, and make fun of, we've moved beyond that. We still need that humor here that we can approach these topics and laugh at ourselves and the ludicrousness of inequality across the board. But anyhow, we have wandered off topic, and we have started the topic in case anybody hasn't noticed. So again, is it transphobic? Is it essentially just media reviews and movies and TV? And do you always look for something that's definitely going to have transphobia in it?
I mean, that's the bread and butter. A lot of times we do mini episodes, and for the most part, it's an unspoken rule that the reviewers are trans, non-binary, intersex, or in some way questioning.
Okay.
But at the same time, we do a lot of mini episodes, and on the mini episodes, anyone can be a part of. Like, we've done a reading of Sylas's short story. We've done panel discussions on things like race as it relates to gender, and as well as sort of race within trans communities, and things like that. We've also done entire featurettes on the Trans Theater Fest and the shows that were going to be coming up last year. We're planning on doing another one for this year. So there's a lot, but for the most part, our bread and butter is media analysis. Now, the way that we choose them, it's a lot easier to find because there's a lot of material that could be pretty much considered transphobic. But that said, we also do a lot of material by trans artists. We've done Her Story before. We've done Sense8. And because of that, you know, trans people can be transphobic too. Now, I'm not saying that those two pieces of media are. In fact, I thought that they were both done extremely well from a trans lens. But at the same time, yeah, look at Caitlyn Jenner. Trans people can be stopping things for trans people as well.
That's so true. It's just a PR mess.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
But then again, I'm the guy that really respects, you know, the Hollywood star I like best is the one I never hear about till they're in a movie. I love the concept of, you know, they have a private life and they're enjoying life, and then they come to work to do a job. But that's me, and however that relates So, yeah. What Silas?
Well, Silas, what's your take on being on Is It Transphobic as a guest? Like,
it's such a fun. It's a fun activity. You know, it has that sense of, because it is all sort of, you know, trans, non-binary, you know, et cetera, guests looking at this material. It's also a great way to sort of explore how you as a trans person might engage with this sort of material. You know, people like to toss around a lot of words like, oh, triggers and whatever. You know, people get this sense that, you know, if you don't like something, you'll never engage with it. And that's really not true. But sometimes you need a different support system, a different method of engaging with material that might, you know, be difficult for you because of its subject matter. And one of the great things that I've found in doing, you know, the podcast basically since the beginning is this ability to look at things that I might not have been interested in before, or that, you know, were on the list, but I thought it was uncomfortable, and I could take it and I could sit down with Ashley, with these other great guests that she's had on the show, and talk about how I really felt engaging with this material. And I loved the way that Ashley really pushed the idea of, is it enjoyable even with its problems? Is it technically good, but makes a mistake in its message? You know, things like that. And then you can take those conversations and you can talk to people who want to be allies, who might be, I love this movie. Why are you saying it's transphobic? And now I can come to them and say, no, I loved Silence of the Lambs too, but I also experienced it in this manner that you might not have. So it's a great tool to learn how to have these conversations, as well as being really, I think, very informative for everyone involved, trans or not.
I like it. I like it. And just so everybody knows, I haven't had a chance, strictly audio, right?
Yeah.
To listen to it then. I didn't want to say watch it if I'm like staring at it.
I haven't had a chance to watch nothing, but yeah.
I get it. This is why when people are like, I haven't actually seen your show, Travis, I'm like, that's okay. I know what life is like. Now, to go into the actual topic, which is trans rights. I remember 3-4 years ago when I did a show on LGBTQ people in the steampunk community. When I was creating the title for that, I had friends come to me going, no, you can't just say LGBTQ in the steampunk community. You got to put the word people after it. And you would never say trans 4 years ago. That was pretty much offensive. You had to say transgender, use the whole term. So we've moved forward and relaxed a little bit in some areas in this. But I'm curious, when we talk about trans rights, what are we looking at here? I mean, we're obviously not worried about voting. So what are we worried about? What are we looking at? And just one of you chime up and then pass the ball and let everybody get a say in it. Go ahead.
Well, we're a little worried about voting because
really,
not if you visually do not match what your ID might say, that can be a reason that you can be denied. It's also a problem like in airports and going through TSA and sometimes like that. So actually voting can be an issue for trans people. If I lay down, an ID and somebody goes, "Oh, you're not this lady. What are you doing?" And I feel like also a lot of times most people probably know that it's you too, so it can be a direct method of being phobic, of being prejudiced against someone.
Can I interrupt with a story tangent here? I worked at DMV in Virginia for 5 years, 98 to 2003. And we dealt with all sorts there, from good to bad. And I found, in general, as a side note, the customers were never really a problem, like 1 out of 1,000. Usually it was the employees that were the dicks. And I remember one person came in, and she stepped up to my counter, and a trans woman. Now, this is 20 years ago, so it was a different how everybody... And I had an employee come across to me when I went into the back to get whatever paperwork printed up, and they're like, "Oh, you got them, and you're not going to give them something, are you?" And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "But they're not what they say. They don't look like the picture." I'm like, "Look, they got ID. Just because the picture's wrong, if I grow a beard and gain 50 pounds, I look..." Shut up. But it didn't occur to me before then that I would deny somebody something based on that. Now, I'll be honest, and I'm going to use it was an oddity, because it's not something you see every day. So I was actually glad to get them because of the way my personality works. I want to learn more. I want to hear more. I want to know, because if one person is doing it, there's a bunch of others that you just haven't ran across yet. But yeah, I saw other people coming up to me trying to shut it down for no good reason.
Well, and kind of like you say, like the idea of it had been an oddity. Like this idea of this is weird and strange, and part of the reason that a lot of trans people haven't been visible is because it's that idea of like, oh, we're like, they're just going to deny your rights. They're going to fight. They like literally exactly like you were saying, like you had people coming up to you. Oh, you can't. They're trying to take advantage. They're trying to essentially like wolf in sheep's clothing. They're trying to trick you. And that is a narrative that we're trying to like,
are you saying like the trans people are wolves in sheep clothing trying to trick us?
That is the opposite of what I'm saying.
Okay,
I'm saying that is
here.
No. But I'm saying like I'm talking about the message that you were receiving from your coworkers is this. And that is absolutely not true. We're not trying to trick you.
What's your agenda? You want my dog? What? I don't like
Right.
dogs. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to steal any dog. Yeah. Um,
I meant job.
but yeah,
damn it.
just that but that
Yeah.
idea of that kind of mentality and that kind of a fear of that interaction or that interaction happening is what stops you from gaining your rights, and is something that will make a lot of people say, well, then it's just better if I don't even bother. It's better if I just live closeted. It's better if I live in a lie, because I don't deal with that. So
That's horrible and a little bit terrifying. It's talking to, throughout my lifetime. Again, I'm paralleling ways I can relate to this that more people can understand. I was in Mississippi when I was 18 years old, so 30 years ago almost. And I'm walking down the street, and there's an older black gentleman, probably in his 40s, walking towards me, and he crosses the road, and I think nothing of it. And then I reach my destination, turn around to look behind me, and he has crossed back. Now, when I was 18, I was, 5'5", 5'6", 110 pounds, and I dressed in polo shirts and button-up shirts generally. A full-grown adult black man crossed the street to get out of my way. And this hit me that, what the hell? And then I have spoken to, various people, again, whether it's religious, ethnic, who are worried about being too visible, too well seen, because it makes you a target. And yeah, I don't think most people can imagine. But if I could find a way to make them relate to it and understand, this is not a new issue. It's just a new face on the issue. And the equality of everybody. How is this not fucking common sense?
yeah.
Okay, go on with what you're saying.
Well,
Yeah, Andrea.
I was going to say, I have a question for all of our guests. What is one challenge that's worse than anything through your process? What is the one challenge you had? Was it the IDs? What was your one challenge? The big one.
I always feel really bad when I have to talk about trans rights with people. And I don't mean it as in I don't want to talk about the issue, but rather I have personally never, I've been forced into a LGBT space or into a trans space or even into the other space. I've lived my life basically the way I would have lived it any way you would have sliced it. And I haven't really ran into a whole lot of problems. And it's one of those things where I feel like there's probably a self-confidence about me just because I hit 6 foot in 10th grade. I was big, burly, 250 pounds. It was one of those things. People didn't try to mess with me anyway. But I've never really had a huge issue with anything. My biggest thing is just what bathroom do I go into? And I know that's something that is well, that is an issue and it's a big one. But I've never had any bad experiences in a bathroom either. I flip-flop back and forth. And
One second, Mo. We lost Sylas. Ashley, since you know Sylas best, if you just want to double-check, make sure Sylas is okay and if he's coming back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me check in on him.
Okay. And I only ask you to do that because it is a sensitive topic, and I want to make sure it's a technical issue and not.
I'm almost certain it is, but yeah, I'll double check.
Okay. And then let us know, and we will bring Sylas in back in as soon as he's ready. Okay, Mo, sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. But I actually did the majority of my transition while I was in Britain. The majority of the name change, the clothing change, whatever changes you would consider as part of a transition, I did a lot of them overseas in a totally different society where, there are non-binary bathrooms everywhere. All of the churches have non-binary bathrooms. There was no I'm walking down the street and you've got people in all kinds of different states of dress. You've got people in like cosplay looking stuff. You've got people wearing full goth punk. It wasn't. I feel like there was just a certain. I must have hit all of the notes when I did it, but I see around me a lot of distress, and I still know the issue is something that I need to address and work around and help just for the sake of the rest of the community. But I've never felt it personally directed at me, and I always feel really bad when the question comes up.
I mean, for me, I've definitely experienced some issues from a lot of internet. Sorry. So Silas has said internet cutout, rebooting now.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, so it was a technical issue.
Good. I'm glad.
But yeah, like for me, like I've definitely had dudes get in my face. I've definitely had people essentially like the bodega in my building I can't go to anymore because one of the employees started acting way too skeevy. I called him out on it, and then he started doubling down. So it's like, all right, I got to go around the building to get soda. Like things like that. But even then, for me, the big thing is it's a lot of the daily stuff. It's a lot of the minutia. It's even just walking into somewhere and being told like, "Oh, hello, sir." It's just like, dude, I know I'm 6'4", but I'm wearing a dress. I'm like, I'm making it, for lack of better term, I'm making an effort. It's just like, you can't even at least ask. You can't, like, why you got to say sir? Like, if you're confused, just don't commit. Like,
let me throw this out there. And agree, disagree, correct me, whatever. At this point in time, it is socially acceptable when meeting a new person who you're unsure of the gender to ask, what is your preferred pronoun?
I would make the case it's acceptable to ask everyone, even if you are sure of the gender. I have definitely been surprised by people when they react and say like, oh, they, them. It's like, oh, great. Okay. And because I think that we get into this headspace that we assume everyone absolutely like, all right, I'm seeing this and I'm right, even if that's not necessarily what I'm trying to, like, even if that's not your mentality, it's still something that a lot of people get into. And it makes it a lot more about them and like, hey, I don't know your gender. What's your pronouns? As opposed to, hey, I don't know you. What's your pronouns?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I had, talking on that point, about pronouns. When I was over in Britain, again, I'm going to probably bring that up a little bit.
That's good.
I met somebody.
Go ahead. And welcome back, Silas. Make sure you flip on your camera. There you go. Welcome
Got
back.
it.
Yay.
Of course, the one day my internet cuts out randomly.
What happens? Okay, Mo, go on.
I actually had someone, we were going to a class together, really good friends, or I consider good friends because we sat next to each other and talked all of class. But it was one of those things where eventually one day they asked me, what are your pronouns? And I said, they, them, he, him, she, I don't care. Just pick one and stick with it. That's my personal, And so, and they went with it. That was awesome. But I didn't ask the question in return. And that came back to bite me. Now, my only thing was I was already using they, them with them. And I already knew because it was on their Instagram page and we had traded Instagrams and following each other. And it said, they, them. So I already knew. But they felt slighted because I didn't ask the question in return when they made the effort to ask me. And a few weeks later, there was like this, and turned to me and went, you never asked what my pronouns were. We got there and I looked and I was like, they're they, them, right? I've been using they, them. And they're like, well, how did you? And so we talked about the fact, I was like, well, we became friends on Instagram and it says it in your bio. So I knew your pronouns. I'm sorry for not. So it's also really nice if someone asks your pronouns. Like, also, or rather, if you ask somebody about pronouns, don't be offended if they ask back, first of all, if you are cis. Or if you're trans and someone asks you your pronouns, it usually means it's a high topic on their mind, so you should ask back as well. And I found that out the hard way.
I've also found in large discussions, like if we're I do a lot of work where we do either talkbacks or like work with Theater of the Oppressed NYC, where we have to lead a discussion. And what we try and do is we try and model the behavior first, because a lot of people, especially if like the first person you turn to has no idea what you're talking about, doesn't know anything, like knows how to speak English, doesn't know how to analyze it, and then is like, pronouns, I don't know, man. And it's just like, okay, well. So, hi, if you can say your name, pronouns, my name is Ash. Like, I would say, hi, my name is Ashley Lauren Rogers. I use she, her pronouns. Then it eliminates, then if somebody does, it's like, oh, okay, I get what we're doing right now. So.
And Andrea, before your next question, I want to go ahead and make sure Sylas gets a chance to answer this one.
Well, that's why I was
Okay, go on. Go ahead. Go to repeat the question. Sylas had an adventure where he wandered off and came back.
Yeah, since your internet cut out, what is one challenge that you've had during your process? Like the one thing?
For me, I think the one thing was the internal stuff. I've been very privileged. I live in Brooklyn. My family's very liberal. So somehow, even despite, having all those advantages, I found as I began sort of questioning my identity and coming up against these sort of feelings I didn't understand, I was surprised to find how much resistance I had to being open to my own identity in a way that I would never have put on anyone else. Mm-hmm. And the way that I had internalized stereotypes about, how genders were supposed to behave that I would never put on anyone else. But one thing I remember for years, 5-6 years, I actively telling myself, well, I can't be a man because I'm too sensitive. People always tell me I'm so sensitive. So I must be a woman, right?
Well, there's a
ridiculous.
Reason.
It sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but it's so these messages are so pervasive, even when you're not dealing with someone who is outright saying like trans people don't exist or women should stay in the home. It's still there, and I found it incredibly difficult, and the work of many years just to unpack that, just about how I felt about myself. And I had this sense that like I always had this fear that people would find out some kind of truth about me. And I didn't know what it was, but I had a lot of walls. I had a lot of behaviors that I put up because I just had this sense, if people see the real me, they're going to see something awful. And
that's a natural human worry.
Yeah.
Natural human confidence issue.
That's what it was. Right. For me, it was, and as soon as I named it, and as soon as I realized what it was, and then I was able to say, well, that's not actually a bad thing, and how do I want to address this? And that was okay. But, going for a long time without a word for it, without the tools to unpack that for myself, I think that more than any of the obstacles that I faced externally, that was the thing.
I tell you what, I relate to what you just said there, because in my mid and late teens, I was not like the other guys. I was sensitive, and not sensitive like I got offended easily. Just I was more concerned and more caring and more give a damn. And until I was in my mid-20s, many people didn't ask if I was gay. They told me I was gay because I had a gentler disposition, and I bathed and I groomed myself. So obviously I was gay. Because I wasn't out there getting dirty and swearing at people.
All but the one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really. And I actually had a gay friend who once described me. He said, Travis is just like a gay man, but he doesn't like the cock. And I took that as a great compliment. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I can't find a bad thing in that.
Yeah, I get that. When I came out to my dad for the first time, one of the things he said to me, I love him. He's wonderful and he's been very good to me. But one of the things that he said to me was, I don't think you can be a man because you're very motherly towards your dog. I didn't know what to say to that, honestly.
Well, Dad, maybe I could be a gay man? I don't know.
Dad, what's the difference? It's a dog.
We've all seen that big, burly male friend who picks up their pet of choice and, you're like,
Yes.
I am somewhere between loving you and just making just mocking you for an hour here because this is great.
Well, to also tie in kind of in mine, kind of on the other end of the spectrum as a trans woman assigned male at birth, I very much leaned heavy into masculinity as much as I could. Again, I didn't know what I was hiding, but I knew I was hiding something, and I had to kind of show that face. And one thing, and I've noticed this amongst a lot of my trans women friends, we all tend to love pro wrestling. And part of it is because it's kind of and I forget which queer theorist, but there's a queer theorist that was talking about professional wrestling, particularly when it was very male dominated. It's kind of like men doing male drag. It's just so over the top manly. It's just no, you're not really a man, right? You're doing a man character, right? What is this the idea of what masculinity is to the extreme?
It makes sense.
Which brings up
exaggeration.
SCOWL, which is a show.
Wait, wedge it in. Go on.
Yeah, no.
So when are we looking at the Kickstarter starting with SCOWL?
Yeah, so it's starting tomorrow. It's running for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. I almost said 2 hours. That's not true. It was so it's running for 2 weeks. It's going to be. We have a $6,000 hope that we're that is our goal. If we reach $6,000, we're going to offer T-shirts to a certain tier of people donating. We're also going to get our friend Kitty Mortland, someone who Sylas and I have worked with. She's a Shakespearean actor based out of New York, and she's going to take John Cena's "The Time Is Now," and she's going to perform it as a Shakespearean monologue.
Nice.
What?
Do we have a link for that yet?
Not for the Kickstarter, but since you don't have that right now, in our chat, I have put how they can follow on Instagram and Twitter for SCOWL and all of our guests.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's something else I want to do as soon as that goes live, and you should have there should be a link somewhere in the Kickstarter that you can grab. It's just not live yet.
So with the Indiegogo, it does exist. I can grab what it is right now. Yeah, okay. No worries. But yeah, it does exist. I can give it to you, but it'll just show you a page that is a dead page. This doesn't exist. And I'd rather people go to the Twitter so that they know, it's live. Tomorrow at noon is my goal.
Afterwards, or at some point in time, send it over via Facebook so tomorrow I can drop it around too. Okay?
Absolutely.
That's all I wanted.
I can do that.
So, okay. Now, so 2 weeks for the Kickstarter, so before May. Mm-hmm. So when are you looking at putting it on? When is it happening?
So it's happening as part of the Trans Theater Fest at the Brick in Brooklyn in July. Okay. And the money, what we're raising for, goes to both rehearsal spaces, it goes to our fight choreographer, it goes to costumes, and it goes to the insurance. Because for a fight show, it's very high insurance.
Yeah, no doubt.
Which, A, that's what we need, and B, that's what we should get.
Yeah, well, just in case. Now, Sylas, are you actually wrestling?
I don't have a full match. I do participate in some small fashion.
Uh-huh.
But my character is mostly going to be there to interact with his buddies and hopefully shoot some one-liners and to look cool.
Okay, well, you got that.
Well, you look cool already, so
thank you.
Yeah, don't push the envelope any further. Give me a chance here too. So I'm just curious. So are you? You're not at any risk of being getting a body slam or anything?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Or Ashley?
Oh,
I'm not. No.
Either.
I'm not.
Ooh.
I'm just curious
So-
how you train to take a body slam. That's where I'm going with this one.
Yeah.
Oh.
So one of the other people that we are paying, who I did not mention, is my friend PJ Gonzalez. She is a Puerto Rican trans woman, and she is an indie wrestler. So she's going to be there, essentially working with our stage choreographer to create these we're going a lot more strike heavy and a lot more hold heavy.
Gotcha.
So there are going to be some slams that we're working out, but we're trying to keep it a lot more like, here's the storytelling angle. Here are a lot of the hits. We're going to try and vary up the hits. We've got the first match is between Gabriel Spector and Jesse Rose Krebs as two characters,
I'm
and the
loving
two of them.
names.
Well, those are their real names.
Oh, are they real names? I'm
You
loving
can
the
love
names
their names too. They got great names. But yeah, the two of them are both in acrobatics. So Gabe is a acrobacer, and Jesse does aerialist stuff.
Nice.
And so we're working out a lot of like variation between the matches, so that there's a lot of stuff that
Right.
is tangentially completely understandable in a wrestling type context. But again, it's still more theatrical. It's still more like, how is this a piece of theater? Like, where is that line? How do we cross it while also paying homage to both theater and the style that is professional wrestling?
Right. No, it sounds fun. I feel like I want to be there with a microphone and a live Twitch stream, so I can announce it live on Twitch. And I don't think that's possible, but that would be great.
Well, if you find yourself in Brooklyn in July,
I'll let you know if I can make it out, and we'll see if we can't work something out. But yeah, I'd have to run a crowdfunding thing of my own just to get up there. Okay, let's go back to topic. Andrea, did you have another question?
Yeah, I have one. What is the one piece of advice you can have for anyone going through this process to help that you wish you had, that you'd like to pass on?
Find a friend. For me, when Ashley started doing Is It Transphobic, I had just started into transition. At the time, I hadn't even fully started saying that I was identifying as a trans man yet. And we were friends, but we weren't close the way we are now. And, she just sort of threw out, oh, does anybody have any interest in doing this podcast with me? And I said yes. I may have been drunkenly brave at the time. And having that community, you need it. I have so many supportive cis people in my life who are there for me 110%. And I sort of underestimated what it would mean to have other trans people in my life. And of course, I'm very lucky. I live in an area where I can have them find a community very easily. But even if you need to rely on the internet, I would tell anybody, just find a chat room, find Reddit, find something, a community where you can talk to other people. It's very difficult to feel alone, even around very supportive, kind people.
Makes sense.
Mm.
Mo or Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, echoing that, I actually didn't have a large trans community of friends before the podcast. Like, it was kind of doing the podcast and sort of saying, hey, I've got a couple of people that might be interested, and then other people were like, hey, I've got this friend, or hey, my partner, or hey, this person. And through doing the podcast, we've kind of been building a small community amongst ourselves as well. But the other thing I would say is, if I could kind of go back and talk to myself early on, it would probably be that just the assurance that what you're going through is okay, what you're going through is natural, and that your experience is valid.
Okay. Mo?
My number one piece of advice I'd love to give smaller me would probably be just don't be sorry. But I've had to learn that across my entire life, not just having to do with being trans, but just also everything. Just stop being sorry for standing where you're standing. Because I always had this thing. I went to, I think it's funny because I never thought of myself as someone who had a lot of LGBT or specifically trans friends. But it actually, I went to a Baptist middle school, which in and of itself is kind of a strange idea. But I went to a Southern Baptist middle school, which you could probably compare to what you think of as that Catholic school life. And now, 10 years later, all of us are LGBT except for the minister's daughter, who's my best friend. And it's one of those things where some of us are like, did the Baptists do this? But I mean, it couldn't have been. It was just how the cards played out, because obviously people younger than us and people older than us, they're totally different.
Now, when you say all of us, you mean your small group of 5 or 6 friends, or do you mean like your whole class of 300 people?
Okay, so this school, it was pre-K to 12th grade, and the majority of the students were in the little grades.
Gotcha.
So we're talking pre-K to first grade. Now, if we take everybody, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 people were in grades.
I was worried you were going to take off your shoes to help the count.
Anyway, but
13 people.
But 13 people from 6th to 8th grade when I was in 7th grade. All of us, except Michaela.
Okay.
So it doesn't sound like a lot, but now it's one of those things where we started reconnecting because everybody left middle school and was like, we're not talking to each other. That was the worst time. I still had my best friend Michaela, but that was it. Everybody else was just like, meh. But now that we've started reconnecting, where we're like, well, I guess there's a part of who I am now. I guess I should go find them on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And now we're looking at everyone. I'm like, and you're trans, and you're trans, and you're trans, and you're bi, and you're gay. It's like, what is this? And it's one of those things where I never realized I had that. And it was almost like when I saw that start happening, probably senior year of high school, I started, reconnecting, and I finally reconnected with everybody now. But when I started seeing that, I'm like, oh, this is normal. Oh, this is what we all did.
Mo,
Everybody's going through it these days.
Mo, I feel like you could become the Oprah of the LGBTQ community.
No,
You've got
goodbye.
such great personality. I just want you to give me a car, really. That's really the underlying methodology here.
Travis, check under your seat.
You'll find a furry cat, probably. I put it there.
No more cats.
Now, it is 2 minutes before the hour. Let's take a refill break, and we will revisit this question for everyone that hasn't been able to answer it yet. And so, refill break. Everybody, don't forget, mute yourselves. And we'll be back in 5, guys.
Sit right back and relax, or get up and get a drink and refill what you have, while the cast and cohorts and co-hosts of Talk of the Tavern do the same. Now here's the testimony of some of the great people we've had on Talk of the Tavern or previously on Sounds of Steam. Enjoy.
This is Gail Carragher, author of The Finishing School and the Custard Protocol series, and you're listening to Talk of the Tavern.
This is Aiden Sivart, Steampunk Indiana Jones.
Hey, this is Scott.
This is Samantha.
And we're Frenchie and the Punk.
I'm Karen Kay, also known as the Fairy Lady and editor of Fae magazine and also founder of Fairy Events.
This is K.W. Jeter, author of Infernal Devices and Fiendish Schemes.
Kircher here. I play Bifur in the Hobbit trilogy, and you are listening to Talk of the Tavern.
This is Trevor Crafts, executive producer and creator of Lantern City.
This is Lord Bobbins of Teslacon. Huzzah!
Steampunk Funk Bizarre here, Lord Monty, right in front of your radio.
Hello, this is Professor Elemental. When I'm not taking a bath in gin or trying to invent a new kind of badger, I'm listening. Oh, yes.
This is Stephen Davis of Raising Steam UK, 2-day steampunk festival in Reading. Enjoy.
I'm Thomas Williford of Brute Force Studios, and you're listening to Talk of the Tavern.
This is Commander Bob of Victor Sierra.
Je suis la légendaire princesse convertie de Victor Sierra.
Hi, my name is Sarah from Valentine Wolf.
Hey, this is Braxton from Valentine Wolf.
This is Aileen the Peacemaker, the founding editor of Beyond Victoriana, the multicultural steampunk blog.
Hey, this is Joseph C.R. Vortek, otherwise known as Electro Swing Neo Vintage DJ Vortek, and you're listening to Talk of the Tavern. I hope you come out of it in one piece. I'm not sure I did.
And don't forget about our other shows during the week. Tuesday, Middle-Aged Gamers on Wednesday, and Virtual International Pub VIP on Thursdays. Make sure you join us there, 1 p.m. Eastern to 4 p.m.
Hi, my name is Ashley Rogers. I'm the organizer of the Copper Claw.
This is Calamity Dawn, mixologist of Airship Passepartout.
This is Commodore Lorpicar of Lost Saints Curiosities.
This is Jimmy Diggs of the Crypto Historians, reminding you that the future is in your hands.
This is Gabrielle Reel.
Hi, this is D. Clarence Snyder, writer of the Bright Future series, and you are listening to Talk of the Tavern.
This is Professor Marcus O'Bannon, the Chief Scientific Investigator for the Crypto Historians.
This is Lady Gatita of Nerdvana.
Hey, this is Angie Bello from Ghostfire.
This is Hannah Titania, Queen of the Fairies.
This is Jeff Platt of Highland Steamworks.
This is Danielle Ackley McPhail, co-author of Baba Ali and the Clockwork Gin, and you are listening to Talk of the Tavern Radio.
Hi, this is John R. White, author of The Tales of the Airship Neverland.
This is Catherine Gleason, author of Anatomy of Steampunk, The Fashion of Victorian Futurism.
This is opera singer Katie Cat.
This is Keith Prusak of Bad September.
This is Captain James Barrington of the mighty Claxton.
This is Emily Leverett, and I'm the editor of Big Bad and Anthology of Evil, Volumes 1 and 2, and you're listening to Talk of the Tavern.
Hola Radio Escuchas, les habla Lady Smoke de Sociedad de Steampunk Argentina y Sindicato Dieselpunk.
This is Melanie Grace with Live Steamy.
We are Warren and Betsy Talbot of MarriedWithLuggage.com.
This is Christopher Meeker, author of Hawthorne, Chronicles of the Brass Hand.
This is Mickey Wonderland, Steampunk Fairy Princess of Wonderland with a fresh cup of Mad Hatter tea.
Hi, this is Margaret McGraw, author of the prompt writing blog WritersSpark.com, and you're listening to Talk of the Tavern.
Hello, this is Mishkin from Bird Eats Baby.
This is Nim Derringer of Airship Hypatia.
This is Painless Parker.
This is Persephone Burroughs Dimebagger, co-captain of the Airship Hypatia.
This is Psyche of Psyche Corporation.
Ahoy, me darlings. This is Misty Massey, author of Mad Kestrel, and you're listening to Talk of the Tavern.
I'm Ellie Ann from Steampunk Homes, author of...
We'll cut that refill break short and come back early because we can. Hey, Andrea, do you realize you've thrown 911 worth of bits? Is that a secret code? Are you in distress?
No, I was on mute.
Oh, okay. Similar. I can't talk.
No, I posted in the chat for any of our viewers to feel free to post any comments or questions for our guests. And if they pop up, I'll let you know.
Good point. Now, I think I did not give any of the three of you a chance to escape from the show if you have to be somewhere else or just want to make an excuse and dive out. Everybody cool going forward again?
Cool.
Yeah, let's do this.
Awesome.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I think we're doing good. It's going well. So
I want to make a comment. I think it's very nice that we are having a discussion and nobody is getting really angry or shitty. So thank you.
Let's do this.
I could do that.
Do you need us to
you
up a little? No, that's enough.
Y'all, dang it. Dagnabbits.
Okay, so what was the question and who were we up to? Repeat the question and then whoever has an answer could jump in.
The one piece of advice that you wish you had that you'd like to give to others.
I can jump in really quick where I left off.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
That's okay. Don't worry. Because I was talking about not being sorry, and then I actually because I kind of had a community, a backup community, like I had backup dancers that I didn't know were there, and then poof, they were there anyway.
I want those.
Right?
Those are your cats. You got 8 of them. But for a while, my Facebook, when I put everything on Facebook, when I came out to Facebook, I had in my description or bio, whatever you call it, I had agender, asexual, apologetic. Like that was my mentality about it.
But that's your mentality in life also. You're so British in that way. So
yeah. No, I'm Canadian. It's where all my genetic makeup comes from.
I'm sorry.
Hey.
No, I'm British. Go on.
But that was my description for a while, because that was how I felt. It was like, I'm sorry I have to explain this to you. I'm sorry I have to walk into this place and I have to explain why I look this way and how I act this way. And I'm sorry that I have to tell you about this. And I'm sorry I need to take time out of your day to go do something normal. It was just how I was thinking about it. And then finally I just sort of told myself, like, you cannot do that anymore. It's just not how this is going to work. It makes your life miserable. And so I'm still a nice person. It's not like I went way over the other end or anything. I still hold doors open for people. I still pat people on the back. I still, help people move boxes from their old house to their new house, and I still give away my stuff because I get tired of it. And I still recycle and use all those points to get free comic books. It's wonderful. I love Norfolk right now.
Is that just a Norfolk thing?
I know that Norfolk and I think Portsmouth both are part of the local one. Okay. But
what are you doing for free comic book day? You want to meet us in Gloucester?
That's this Saturday at Cinco de Mayo.
Okay, think about it.
We'll go for tacos.
Okay. But I just sort of gave up on being sorry. It was one of those things where I was like, it's not worth my time to be sorry. I thank people now. I thank them for letting me be part of their life. I thank them for letting me be part of their experience. They ask me a question like, why do you look that way? And they might be being rude. They just might be. And I go, thank you for asking. I genuinely just approach everybody with this idea of like, thank you. And it's liberating in a totally different way.
Sounds healthier.
It's like, it is healthier, probably. My therapist thinks so too.
Say again, Sylas?
I was saying, I feel like he's giving me this advice. It's for me. I need to learn this.
Hold on, I can't take notes fast enough.
Tell something to my parents. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I have to talk to friends. Don't be uncomfortable. I know you're going to be uncomfortable. I'm sorry. So I'm gonna say thank you for being uncomfortable.
A lot
instead.
of times, people are uncomfortable because they're worried about you being uncomfortable. Even running this show, my biggest concern is upsetting somebody else. And I'm sure, maybe one of you, I'm looking at you, Mo, might feel the same way, worried about upsetting somebody else. But the bottom line is, if we all agree to have the conversation, then we can relax and we can, we're going to make mistakes no matter what we're doing in life. It's a matter of being open to going, oh, I got it. That was a mistake. Let's. How do we do this right? And go ahead.
Well, my thing is, if the question isn't asked, how do you know? And if you ask it in a polite and respectful way, then you find out. Because I'm curious about a lot of things. Bo knows this because I ask Bo questions all the time. But I'm not doing it to be disrespectful.
Build a bear.
Right. So, and it helps too if you're asking a question, being aware that someone might not want to answer your question.
Yeah.
Right. Too. And so, like when you ask the question with that safety net of that person being able to go, I don't really want to talk about that, then everybody can be comfortable.
Mm-hmm. It helps. It helps.
A lot.
Okay. So, who else had some advice for others to help others out? No advice. We're moving on. Damn it.
Yeah, they don't need it. They're fine.
That's enough advice.
They don't need to know.
We just push them off the branch and hope they fly.
Good advice.
There you go.
Unapologetic.
Well, I have some advice because I'm on the other side. I'm on the outside looking in, and I am very polite and respectful, and I ask questions, and I'm curious. But if I get a pronoun wrong, I do try my best, but sometimes I get confused, and especially if I've known you for a long time by something else. It's a process for those on the outside also. So my advice is have patience. Because I've seen some people get very...
Just to kind of not challenge that, because I don't think that this is necessarily a challenge, but I want to throw out also with that, there's an extent that when you're seeing someone, you don't know where they're coming from, and that's on both sides, admittedly. Yes. But like when you're talking to a trans person, like for me, again, like almost every interaction I get misgendered for a lot of it. And so like when you're coming to me and it's just like, so the person that's at the coffee shop, and then the person on the street trying to make sure I don't drop something, and the person doing all sorts of other things that are probably good things that just like, it's just happening. And then finally, like, I'm just at my wit's end, and it can be very hard for everyone and anyone to have that kind of patience depending on the day that they've had. And so it is one of those things where like, that can be used as an argument against taking trans people seriously sometimes, is that idea of like, oh, well, a trans person was mean to me once, so now I hate them all. But like, I know that's not where you were going with that, but like, just to throw that out also, the other end of that is that,
Mine is more from family. Like,
okay. I can tell
your mother, your sister, you know.
On one of our Monday night shows, we had a mother who we know, it's a friend, who's talking in the chat. And she mentioned she has a child that is a non-binary child. And that child put a jar in the house that if any family member gets the pronoun wrong, they have to pay money. Now, as much as I am supportive, and I see Sylas the thumbs up,
I'm sorry.
I'm in favor too. Yeah. See, I have an issue with
like a spare jar.
Yeah, my child charging me for making a mistake, and I'm suddenly thinking, you know what? How about you just pay for your food and the gas money to and from school now? Okay, we're a family here. We got to work with each other.
Well, I hear that, but at the same time, even if it's just like a nickel. Like, and I'm saying this as a like, okay, to put a monetary value on, oh crap, I'm fucking up, helps to sort of like get some people to be like, oh, there is a real consequence to this. I need to like, oh, right. And it can help. Now, based on what you've said, that's probably not the right method for you.
It wouldn't, unless if I get to put a jar beside it that every time I don't make a mistake, they get to put money in. Now, challenge accepted. I'm getting $5 a week.
You're just going to find as many opportunities to use sentences with the word they.
Sylas, what do you? Go ahead.
I'm thinking about this in the context of my own life. I have a lot of these conversations with my mother-in-law, and one thing that I always run into the problem with her is that when she makes a mistake, her response is always, I'm trying, don't get mad at me. And what I've realized, and this is specific to her, is she's not really trying. It's like a superficial trying.
Yeah.
And the discussion I've had with her is, when it's not your pronoun, it's hard for it to feel really important. And I think sometimes trans people struggle with communicating the amount of pain that comes from being misgendered. From the outside, it seems so small and insignificant, but it is a huge, every time, even when people don't mean it, and it's someone in the street who doesn't realize, they just look at you and they make a judgment call and it was the wrong call, and you go about your day. It sticks, it hurts. It reminds you of the things you're struggling with, the things that bother you internally or the things that bother you externally. And so when she's thinking about what pronoun to use for me, she's thinking, oh, it's so annoying to try to remember things. And I want to remember, but also like this is kind of a hassle for me. And that is the weight that it has for her. Whereas for me, it is deep, personal, painful. I go home and I think about it afterwards, even when she doesn't mean it.
I hear.
And so I sometimes I think that's the tool. Like as you say, the change might be the wrong choice, but it's like the swear jar. It's like I'm trying to communicate the need for this practice, the need to try really hard. And I think most people, if they feel that effort, will relax about it. Mm-hmm. But it can be hard to let people know how hard you're trying too. So like it feels like a communication issue sometimes for me.
As a waiter, and this is not going to, by the way, absolutely valid what you said. I hear you. As a waiter, I have walked up to a table with this mustache and this voice and went, good evening, how are you? What can I get for you? And the person, as they're ordering, goes, yes, ma'am, to me. It would happen at least once every 10 days. 3 times a month I would get this. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I don't care. It's fine. It doesn't bother me. And that's the only advice I could give is stop. Yes, what you're saying, absolutely valid. But choose who you care enough to torture yourself afterwards about it and be upset about it. Stranger on the street, it dings your identity, and that hurts. But on the other hand, their opinion doesn't matter, especially a passing one. So give yourself that value of going, I know, I don't care. If it helps, transfer it to something else. Think of it instead of them.
For your own sanity.
Yeah,
that's
all.
Pick and choose.
Sure. Not for that.
And honestly, some days it can be easier said than done. But absolutely, like you kind of have to in order to.
Some days
keep
it's
moving.
Everybody has those days.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's But
if I could offer a different side to that,
there's a third side.
There is.
It's a tesseract. It's a spectrum.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's one of those little things that are the little bits in the corner where it's all different sides and stuff. Click it. You should give money. Anyway, I spent. Now I'm going to give you a really quick sort of image in your mind. I'm 6 foot, 250 pounds. I've got 2 like grapefruit sitting on the front of my chest. I have a somewhat androgynous voice. My range has always been between the 2. Higher whenever I'm trying to like please someone and be nice about it. Lower when I'm not.
Me too.
And so, look at that bits.
That was Andrea.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. But I spent my entire life. I've gotten the switch back and forth on gender. My entire life has been, whether you call it gendering and misgendering, however you want to term that binary. The problem is being non-binary. It's like I'm not being misgender. It's weird, and I recommend that it's weird, and I understand that it's weird. But my entire life has been. People are switching pronouns on me mid-conversation. All the time. Unless they saw my driver's license or they had like school record, my teacher knew. I had people in my life that flip-flopped back and forth, and they knew me for years. People at my church, people at school, they just were like, well... And it was one of those things where my mom and dad, when I came out, they were like, well, we knew something was up. And that was basically their entire thing, was we knew something was up. But I went to high school and for the open night, 9th grade, and they tried to recruit me for the football team because they thought I was a dude walking in through the doors. And my dad let it go for a while, and then finally he picked up the thing and went, so it's a men's only team. And that was when it clicked for me. Oh, they don't mean me, you know? But the guy's like, well, yeah. And he's still trying to sell it to us. And my dad's just like, what do I do? And he brings it up every once in a while because he says, I looked at you and you so nicely just was like, I think I'll choose a different team. Like that was like, but I have been misgendered or multiply gendered or however you want to call it my entire life. And so the fact that I get it now, it's one of those things where I just was like, I can't care about it anymore. But I've had to not care since middle school, since 5th grade.
By the way, there are two stories I'd love you to tell in the third hour. You've told them before on the show, but they are great stories, and I think Ashley and Silas will enjoy them. It's the Baptist Hairy Leg singing story and the old lady anime porn story.
Yes!
I'm already...
There's your teasers.
You should be.
We'll get to that in the third hour.
I love how you call it the anime porn story. Like, there's no porn. Well,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I gotta write them down. Are you gonna remember?
I've already got it written down. I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Ashley will remember. Look.
I'm already in. Hairy Leg Baptist singing story and old lady anime porn story. We're gonna ask me again by the third hour, and I'll see if those adjectives are the same.
I'd write great news headlines for coming up at 11 o'clock. Okay, so I think, did we go all the way around? Did everybody answer that wanted to answer?
About the challenge? I think so.
Okay. Challenge, yes.
I think so.
Okay, I just don't want to...
We all talk about gender.
Because I have another question, but I don't want to cut anybody off that didn't get a chance to speak, that's all. Okay, so here I'll ask it, and if somebody didn't answer, they can answer both. Now, this is a broad spectrum, rose-colored glasses question. It's more rhetorical than anything, but I listened to you three describe yourself. I'm a trans woman. I'm a trans man. When do we get to drop the word trans from that statement and say, I'm a man, I'm a woman?
Well, and if I can kind of start the discussion there, I feel like once our visibility isn't seen as you put it earlier, an oddity.
Right.
Once we're seen as valid, once we're seen as like, oh yeah, because there's an extent that yes, I am a woman, but there's also an extent that I am a trans woman, not because I'm different from women, but because that's also part of my experience, and my experience is different from, say, and I'm making assumptions, but say Andrea's experience as a woman.
Right.
And so it is one of those things where it does help as a it shows visibility. I proudly state I'm a trans woman. Some trans women, after they get to a certain point in their transition, after they reach that point, and this is true of trans men as well, they drop it completely and they never want to talk about it and they never want to see anyone from their past. And that's totally fine. That's totally valid. Well, it is, like, especially like in the environment that we were talking about before, where this idea of it's an oddity, and especially if you have the ability to pass, if you have the ability to go stealth, as they say also, many people want to drop it and don't want to talk about it.
If I can clarify, 20 years ago, it was an oddity to me. Now, I could put together a show with a handful of my trans friends. And
True.
So it's not an oddity to me, but it is to the general public, and I get that.
Right.
And as for dropping the people from your past, if you're dropping them because it was a negative influence on your life, I am all for that. Trans set aside, just poison in your life, get rid of it.
As a person.
But if you were removed...
But there's...
Go ahead.
But within trans circles, what I mean by that specifically is anyone from their past, so that if somebody talked to them, somebody knew them, somebody said anything, like let's say I'm just meeting you for the first time, I don't want you to talk to anyone that I knew prior to transition. And again, that is a valid want for their life, because they're worried that, they'll give away the fact that they're trans. And again, that is valid.
I'm just hurt by the idea that I might lose good friends because they felt they changed, when to me they're the same person. I just change a pronoun, but they're still a friend to me and somebody I care about. So it's me more whining, going, I don't want to lose people I like because things in their world have changed. That's all.
And I think because we're moving in a much more trans inclusive and a much more like, yes, trans is 100% valid to the general public, we're going to see that a lot less. And it's going to be a lot more like, it's less of a, this is an adjective for me because I need it and because it's like, oh, it's different, and more because this is celebratory.
Very valid.
I'm a trans woman.
Yeah. No, it's valid. It's just like any of these other things that we've gone through in our society in the past 50 or 100 years where, well, why do you point out the difference? To show there is a difference and it should be inclusive. Well, that's an oxymoron. No, not really. There is a point in time where the discussion has to be available so you can integrate and bring it all together. And then once that's done, it's very easy to never need it again. You know, unless if you're in a medical appointment, then it's probably important. Just saying.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with what Ashley's saying, with the idea of your experience is shaped by how you're brought up. And in our world, it's still so gendered.
Yeah.
The way that you're taught to behave, it's different in different areas of the country and the world, and it's different from person, parent to parent. But there's definitely a sense of the way that you are taught to behave. Little boys are supposed to be rambunctious and little girls are supposed to be calm, and what you're supposed to play with and how you're supposed to dress and how you're supposed to engage with the opposite gender socially.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I said before, I have some really wonderful cis friends who've been just 100% there for everything that I've been going through. But I have run into a bit of a stumbling block with some of my cis male friends who are like, okay, you're just a dude now, you're just like us, and we're all on the same page. And I find that my experience being raised is so different that I will come to just topics of conversations and, what bars I want to go to from a completely different perspective. And it's always this weird, how do we navigate, calling each other the same gender, but having this almost like different language to talk about it.
I feel you on that one, because a lot of my guy friends, I joined a cigar group. I enjoy cigars, obviously. And they're all like middle-aged men, but they are like college frat boys, and that's not my thing. I don't want to talk about I ate, 32 buffalo wings, or hey, look at this picture of the naked chick. Well, no, I want to talk about the 12 I ate because I just can't make it to 32.
I can make it to 32.
You're young, high metabolism. But yeah, it is almost a different language when I'm talking to real men or whatever, because I want to stop and stare at a building, and frankly, whether male or female, if I see somebody who is interesting to look at or beautiful, it's not about gender at that point in time. Here's nature's architecture that is just dazzling to gaze upon. Doesn't mean my penis is involved in this transaction, but to them, it's a dude, I'm not going to look at him, or it's a chick, I'm going to ogle. And it's like, good for you, enjoy life, but that's not my thing, and it is. And I only tell you this because, hey, there's other guys just like you who have that same problem. Yeah.
And as I transition and as I move into, both being confident in myself, but also navigating these questions with these guys who are very close to me, we start to develop a language to talk about, oh yeah, I never went to a bachelor party before, and then I went to my first bachelor party and it was terrible. But granted the groom also hated it, so that was kind of a different thing. But yeah, to show up and be like, I have no prior knowledge. You've all done this before, and I haven't. And I love being included and recognized, but also help or something.
Wait
and that's a
wait till
great
you have
thing
a woman that won't be your friend because you don't want to sleep with her. That is confusing. I have had women who they're hanging out. I'm like, we're just friends. We're not going to have.
Not me.
No, not you. But yeah, I've had women go, oh, well, then we're not going to hang out anymore. And I'm like, what? Really? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I didn't know.
Like, well,
This is weird, but have a good one.
Well, and that could be the other side of the coin. I don't know, Ashley, if you've had to deal with it where some guys don't want to be your friend because you're not going to sleep with them.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I mean, I have, and this is kind of a blessing and a curse. I started seeing my wife. We started dating in high school, and so it's one of those things where like I've not really had to because and it's been like a weird thing where like I've always just been in a relationship, so I'm really worried should anything happen one way or another that I ever have to jump into the dating pool again, because it's going to be a real culture shock because I won't even know where to start, hypothetically.
Have you had issues, not dating aside, just as friends, where guys won't be your friend because you won't date them? I mean, is that an issue?
I mean, it's also because I'm pretty like out as a trans lesbian, so and that doesn't stop guys all the time, but like for me, like I've never really had. For me, I've not had that experience, but that is a common experience that I have heard. So it is something that like, nope, it's on my radar. But no, I've not had anyone stop a friendship or like stop even the starting of a friendship because sex was definitely not on the table. But again, like it's definitely a valid thing, and I've heard it from a lot of people, cis, trans, and non-binary. So it does happen across the spectrum.
Why can't we all just be friends? And then once you pair up, go fuck later. That's fine. But
why not?
Yeah, not as a group, not all of us at once. That's just messy.
I mean, maybe as a group,
whatever.
Maybe they'll solve those problems.
I'd start a whole new basket of them, though. Okay, that was my question, and it makes sense to keep it for visibility, the term trans, until it's not needed anymore, and that's when we can not have it.
Well, then there's also a worry that I have, and I know that this is slightly off topic, but like the idea of when we don't need it anymore type of there's always like, especially from a legal sense, whenever we get to a point where legally it's like, okay, well, we don't need these restrictions on like stopping people from employing a certain amount of like people of color or a certain amount of people of varying abilities, because we've made so much progress. So then they kind of remove them, and then suddenly we go right back to like, oh, we don't need to follow this rule anymore. And so it is kind of a catch-22.
I'm not going to
only
thing I
want
to bring up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like,
no, I get it.
Yeah.
And by the way, when I say when it's not needed anymore, it's always needed in certain aspects, like medical, situations. But it always has to be able to be pulled in. And the time frame I'm looking at, when we don't need it, it might be 50 years. It might be 250 years. This is not going to be a overnight transition to, because looking at black rights, well, you tell a story and you mention race, and I've had a lot of people go, why is race important? I'm like, because it is. I am going to sound like shit when I say any of this. I know this. Another similar story. Going over to where I come from. Somebody asked me, "Oh, do you have any black friends?" Making the white cliche joke of, "I have a black friend," and I went, "Yeah." And, I mentioned one or two, and then like 3 days later, I remembered 5 more, and then a week later, I had like a dozen or 20 names in my head. I'm like, because I don't think of my friends as, oh, I know gays and I know blacks and I know Jews. I have this group of friends, and if I think about it long enough, I'll realize, oh, I've got a blend. And so it's not important to me, but it's
a part of them. It doesn't define them.
Yeah.
So. And there's also something about being put on the spot as well with something like it's like I think it would be even funnier if the end of that story is, so I kept texting my friend all of the black people that I know, and then they finally said, okay, Travis, we get it, black people.
I know that's no. By the way, Talking Toad says, do you ever think that trans will be a bad word in the future, as some old terms are forbidden now?
because I know I've been talking a lot. Would either of you like to jump in on that first, or
think it'll be effective in the future?
Language is always evolving. People make things slurs, and then we co-opt them sometimes. And I think anything could end up being a bad or a good word in the future. Queer used to be a terrible word, and now it's most people's word of choice, but not everybody. Some people still get offended when you use it. So, sure, it could definitely happen, but I don't see it terribly likely soon. But yeah, who knows?
Makes sense.
Yeah. Like there are some words, like even incel was actually started as a way to describe a queer woman's struggle. And I see Sylas like making motions like, yeah, like incel was actually started as a way to describe a queer woman's struggle, not being able to come out, and so living a world where she just can't essentially have sex, and it's been co-opted. I mean, things can happen, language can change. Could trans become a slur later? Yeah, maybe. I don't see it right now. I see it still being incredibly inclusive, but anything can happen.
Okay, question from somebody named Cheeky Wandos. Question: if both genders were equal, so whatever you wear, act, etc., doesn't matter, a man can wear a dress, etc., and still be called a man, but it's normal, would you still consider yourself transgender?
Yes, because it goes beyond that. It goes beyond clothing. It goes beyond artificial. It goes beyond. It's not just. And I think that this is a common misconception: is that it's the idea of like, oh, it's a man in a dress. And I also do want to also talk about that it's more than like the two genders. That there's a lot of different genders, but like in the ones that we tend to be told about, it's usually the male and female. But yeah, like I say...
Thank you for the follow, Cheeky. Here's to you. Go on.
But like I say, because it goes beyond that, because it goes beyond just like an artificial something, yes, I would still consider myself transgender because I was assigned this at birth and I'm not that. And that's fine. The doctor just got it wrong because he looked at my genitals.
Yeah.
And he guessed incorrectly. So...
And it's not about the clothing. It's about so much more. It's...
Yeah.
Whenever I have to use, and I'm going to use the word stereotype here, but whenever I end up using sort of stereotypes to explain where my gender sort of lies, because it is a non-binary gender, agender, or where my gender expression lies, if that makes better sense. I always end up telling people it's somewhere, I sort of vacillate between a butch woman and a very effeminate man. Like, those are my... And that doesn't mean... It's one of those things, like, it took, especially my father, a long time to sort of figure out that when I was wearing, like, something considered feminine, very feminine, you know, floral prints, mesh, you know, I'm trying to make an image and I'm doing a really bad job, skirts, flowy things... Those are the days I feel more masculine. It's almost like I feel so comfortably masculine that I can stray into a feminine gender expression, if that makes any sense.
You're balanced.
It's confusing to me. But it's like, on the days I actually feel closer to the woman side of the spectrum with that gender are the days I put on, you know, my cargo shorts and my polos and my button-ups and my blazers. It's a give and take. It's almost like I only have so much gender. It either goes in expression or like in my body. And and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I that's how I have to explain it, which is why whenever someone says, well, what if as a man you could wear dresses and stuff, and I'm like, I'd do that. And then they're like, well, if we're living in a world where like women could just wear like pants and cargo shorts and everything and still be a woman, I'm like, I hear you. I'd like a and it's one of those things where I'm like, I get what you're saying, but the way I feel and the social role that I've taken in the society we live in today does not align with either of the two sort of ends of the spectrum. And I've taken that role on myself. Some of it has been placed on me, but I've picked and chosen which parts I wanted to really embrace, and I've ended up in the middle of the spectrum, and I just want to hang out there as long as possible. And going a little bit back to the question before on whether or not we could get rid of trans, trans man, trans woman, and then there's someone like me who doesn't want to be considered a regular woman or a regular man, even in the end. I'm just like, I am me. And I actually, really quickly on that note, wanted to share one of my favorite quotes. It's from a manga. I'm a huge anime and manga fan, by the way. I find a lot of really great gender expression in those parts of like the media, and a whole lot of horrible as well. Don't worry, but it's from My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness. It's a gorgeous little pink book that you can find. But I'm going to read. It's really quick, but it's. It says, "It wasn't that I wanted to be a man. It was more that I hated belonging to a gender at all. It was that I didn't want to accept that I was a woman because of the differences. I wanted to be seen as myself first. I was excessively afraid of being defined as only a woman." And that's where I feel like I fall. Sort of this idea that, there are a whole lot of traits that someone, because society has decided it, sort of attaches to the adjective of woman, or the noun of woman, however you want to use it, attaches there, that some of them apply to me, but definitely not all of them. And same when on the man side. There are a whole lot of descriptors that sort of get lumped on that end of the spectrum. And sure, some of them work really well for me. And then the other ones is like, no. But that's why in a world where gender doesn't, you can wear whatever you want, I feel like I'm still going to land in the center. That's how it's going to work.
Sylas, you got some thoughts on these couple of things?
For sure. I mean, I think this really speaks to the constant struggle, both for the trans community and for everyone else, to define the difference between gender expression and gender. And part of the problem is we don't really know what gender is. A lot of the things we used to say about gender aren't really true, like biology XY and XX chromosomes, which is not really a thing. And people want to say it's mental, they want to say it's physical, they want to say it's, the shape of your body, and none of that's really true. But we don't really have, we can't look at a brain and just be like, we know what a gender is. But whether or not you feel comfortable with the gender you were assigned at birth, your way of expressing that gender is different. You could be a guy who really likes to look good in suits and hats. You could be a guy who loves his sports stuff. You could be a lady who hates dresses, or you could be, super high femme or anything like that. And I think people see that question of how you express yourself and can mistake it for transness. I love makeup. It's super fun. I like painting my nails. And part of my transition has been hoping that I can get to a point where I still feel like a guy and then can go back to it. I don't do it now because I have a cute face, and as soon as I put on lipstick, everybody's going to clock me as a lady, and I don't want that. But, I don't really relate that expression to how I feel about knowing that I am a man. And I can't explain how I know. I can't say, oh, I always like sports, or, oh, my sexuality is a certain way, or none of that says it. So people always want to know, well, what is trans? And we don't have an answer that we can put in a definition, really.
Yep, we are still working through it.
Yeah, and so that for me, when I try to sort of explain that to people, you get in the discussion, you talk about expression, you talk about all these things and your life experience and everything, and then you kind of get to this point where you're like, and you're just gonna have to trust me that I know that I'm a guy, and I can't prove it to you.
Well,
And
I also
it's crazy.
Well, I also, you look at, like, I'll look at my mom when I came out to her. She was like, how can you tell? And of course, that's the normal thing. And I was trying to explain it to her, and she goes, how can I tell? You know, like, she was like, am I a woman? Is that how? Oh, like, when I came out to my mom, she did all the research. She went, looked everything up. She educated herself. I have to give her props for that. That doesn't mean
we wanted her mother on the show also because it is another aspect of the experience. And Tara, her mother, has been so supportive and great, at least from our outside view, and from what I hear from Mo, from the inside view also.
There's always little bits. She's my mom.
Well, yeah.
That's just moms being moms, right? But she went and did all of the research, and then she came back to me and she goes, I don't mean to steal your spotlight, but, you know, and that was when she came out. She was like, I have to be demisexual.
Right.
And I am not this feminine female. She's like, I don't think I'm, you know, non-binary, but I'm not there either. She's in between. And then she started, like, she had this, like, thing going where she was, like, feminine and masculine attributes. And then after a while, she was like, did you know if I flip this, it's your father? And so it was just like, find the human that fits all of the little intricacies that you're missing, and you got a good match going on. But it's one of those things where when someone starts asking you, well, how do you know you're a woman? I'm looking at them, and I'm like, how do you know? Let's compare notes. Like, what tells you when you get up in the morning that you are the gender that you were assigned at birth?
It's more of how you fit I think they're asking, how do you fit the social construct that we've created over hundreds of years of history? And now we're looking at breaking
and I don't subscribe to it.
Right. We're changing the definitions, or even going, maybe those definitions aren't necessary. And we do have
and a lot of those.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was just going to say, yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, a lot of those definitions also have changed even over the past 50 years. Even like they're constantly changing and evolving. What is a man? What is a woman? What do these things? So as much as it's like written in stone, like, oh, we have these things, it's just like, no, we really don't, because they're constantly in flux. So
you okay, Mo?
I am. I even muted for it. A good cough.
We do have another question from Cheeky here, and kind of covered part of it, but I'm going to go ahead and read it off in case there's anything to add to this. And Ashley, I know you're in the Twitch list of somebody watching, so you may have already seen this. Cheeky says, "Can I ask why they feel like it's more than just the way they act, etc.? Would they be happy if there were essentially no genders but two sexes? So basically, every person is non-binary. Would they be happy with being non-binary?"
I have twofold. First off, the big thing is there is a certain misnomer of the idea of there being two sexes. Those are the two prominent sexes. The big thing is there are also intersex folk, people that have maybe an extra X chromosome. There are a number of other chromosomal, for lack of a better term, anomalies that happen outside of XY and XX. And because of that, there really aren't just two sexes. There are two very prominent sexes. And so that would leave those people out and leave them in the lurch and make them othered.
I want to get a DNA check now to find out about me. I'm curious.
I'm really curious about my chromosomes too. Like, honestly, like, it can be very expensive, and most people don't get them checked out. I think a lot of people would find out that they have some sort of chromosomal difference or chromosomal anomaly. Again, just using that word for this purpose. If they got them checked out, but it can be very expensive to do so, and you only ever do that if you're competing in the Olympics or doing something else that involves like getting a chromosomal, like a genetic test, usually to look for any kind of future problems that could come up. So with that also said, we covered this when we did an episode of Star Trek. Actually, Sylas and I, that was an episode that we did together. We did 2 episodes of Star Trek Next Generation, and one of them was where Riker was teamed up with a person who is you know the episode I'm talking about, Mo?
Yeah.
Like
I
teamed up with someone who was from a society where they abolished gender, but they still stuck to this one specific non-binary style gender, and because of that later on you find out that she actually identifies as she, but this person was put into a lot of this, like the gender reformation camp, and it became another almost authoritarian style of enforcing this gender. And really it may seem like semantics, but honestly the real way out is to embrace gender fluidity and to embrace the idea that whatever.
Embrace the whatever.
Embrace it. Yeah. As opposed to like, okay, we're locking things in. It's like, okay, no. If we really lock things in, that's where we start running into a lot of these problems. My opinion on that.
Sylas?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say too, there's sort of 2 aspects of relating to your gender. There's the way you relate it outside to other people, whether it just be the outside world in general or, a partner or something like that. And there's also an internal sense. One of the things for me that probably wouldn't change if we just said, oh, everybody's non-binary, but your body is different, is I was born with a lot of body dysphoria. So my body doesn't make sense to me. There's things about it that feel incorrect that is related to the sense of being trans. I just realized, this is cool, I have been on T exactly 1 year today. So that's kind of awesome.
Oh, congrats.
I was like, what's the date today? It's the 3rd.
What does
testosterone
being on T mean? Okay. Because I know most
I've been taking hormone replacement therapy, testosterone, for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been part of my journey to align my physical self with whatever my brain thinks that it should be. And that is something that is not necessarily related to the way that society defines gender. There are plenty of trans people who feel like their bodies are correct and that it's the outside world looking at their bodies and telling them that it's not what they say it is.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not true of all people. And so that is something that is, again, we don't really know what makes it happen, but it's something that is some kind of brain or body or biology or something that wouldn't just go away if we stopped defining it.
Gotcha.
I just want to read this off. Talking Toey says, hey, I can confirm I'm solidly traditional cis female because I've always loved Captain Kirk. Geeky smile.
I also love Captain Kirk.
Everyone has to love Captain Kirk,
right? Of course. Right?
That's how it works.
You want to hear some blasphemy? I like the new one better than William Shatner's.
Okay, I like both of them. Shush, it's okay.
Which new one? The J.J. Abrams?
Yeah, Chris.
Okay.
I love Chris Pine. I want to be Chris Pine.
He's just adorable.
Chris Pine is my gender.
Fun, and yeah, it's.
I mean, I am a trans female. I'm a trans female lesbian. I would bang Chris Pine.
Yes, because he's so beautiful.
Because
my wife got this for me.
That's cute. I don't know if I'd bang with him, but I sure the hell would cuddle him.
I just want to pet him from like an arm's distance.
Okay, Chris Pine, time to chime in and come on the show and be adored.
Ladies and gentlemen, to non-binary people, please welcome Chris Pine.
Okay.
Star Trek does make everything better, Toey. I do have another question, but I want to wait till after the refill break because it's going to take more than 2 minutes.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes. And I'm curious, have you seen the Orville?
I saw the first episode, and it was a really good episode, but I haven't watched anything since.
Okay.
Number 3.
Person.
Watch number 3.
No.
Did I? Yeah. This is another one that you covered with me, Sylas. Yes. Yeah, you're asking about all the ones that Sylas and I did on Is It Transphobic? Okay.
It brings
so
up
I
a
say
good
this.
Point.
Say again.
I said it brings up a good point with society. So
you know what? We are about to go into the break, so let's hold it. But we can definitely go into it, and don't worry about stating your mind on it. We can agree to disagree, or we can our minds can be changed. So it'll be great to hear your views on this. But let's do this. Everybody, get up and refill and do what you got to do. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
Sit right back and relax, or get up and get a drink and refill what you have, while the cast and cohorts and co-hosts of Talk of the Tavern do the same. Now here's the testimony of some of the great people we've had on Talk of the Tavern or previously on Sound of Steam. Enjoy.
This is Gail Carragher, author of The Finishing School and the Custard Protocol series, and you're listening to Talk of the Tavern.
This is Aiden Sivart, Steampunk Indiana Jones.
Hey, this is Scott.
This is Samantha.
And we're Frenching the Punk.
I'm Karen Kay, also known as the Fairy Lady and editor of Fae magazine, and also founder of Fairy Events.
This is K.W. Jeter, author of Infernal Devices and Fiendish Schemes.
Kircher here. I play Bifur in the Hobbit trilogy, and you are listening to Talk of the Tavern.
This is Trevor Crafts, executive producer and creator of Lantern City.
This is Lord Bobbins of TeslaCon. Huzzah!
Steampunk Funk Bazaar here, Lord Monty right in front of your radio.
Hello, this is Professor Elemental. When I'm not taking a bath in gin or trying to invent a new kind of badger, I'm listening. Oh, yes!
This is Stephen Davis of Raising Steam UK, 2-day Steampunk Festival in Reading. Enjoy.
I'm Thomas Williford of Brute Force Studios, and you're listening to Talk of the Tavern.
This is Commander Bob of Victor Sierra.
Je suis la légendaire princesse convertie de Victor Sierra.
Hi, my name is Sarah from Valentine Wolf.
Hey, this is Braxton from Valentine Wolf.
This is Aileen the Peacemaker, the founding editor of Beyond Victoriana, the multicultural steampunk blog.
Hey, this is Joseph C.R. Vortek, otherwise known as Electro Swing Neo Vintage DJ Vortek, and you're listening to Talk of the Tavern. I hope you come out of it in one piece. I'm not sure I did.
And don't forget about our other shows during the week. Tuesday, Middle Age Gamers on Wednesday, and Virtual International Pub VIP on Thursdays. Make sure you join us there, 1 p.m. Eastern to 4 p.m.
Hi, my name is Ashley Rogers. I'm the organizer of the Copper Claw.
This is Calamity Dawn, mixologist of Airship Passepartout.
This is Commodore Lorpikar of Lost Saints Curiosities.
This is Jimmy Diggs of the Crypto Historians, reminding you that the future is in your hands.
This is Gabrielle Reel.
Hi, this is D. Clarence Snyder, writer of the Bright Future series, and you are listening to Talk of the Tavern.
This is Professor Marcus O'Bannon, the Chief Scientific Investigator for the Crypto Historians.
This is Lady Gatita of Nerdvana.
Hey, this is Angie Vello from Ghostfire.
This is Hannah Titania, Queen of the Fairies.
This is Jeff Platt of Highland Steamworks.
This is Danielle Ackley McPhail, co-author of Baba Ali and the Clockwork Gin, and you are listening to Talk of the Tavern Radio.
Hi, this is John R. White, author of The Tales of the Airship Neverland.
This is Catherine Gleason, author of Anatomy of Steampunk, The Fashion of Victorian Futurism.
This is opera singer Katie Kapp.
This is Keith Prusak of Bad September.
This is Captain James Barrington of the mighty Claxton.
This is Emily Leverett, and I'm the editor of Big Bad and Anthology of Evil, Volumes 1 and 2, and you are listening to Talk of the Tavern.
Hola Radio Escuchas, les habla Lady Smoke de Sociedad de Steampunk Argentina y Sindicato Dieselpunk.
This is Melanie Grace with Live Steamy.
We are Warren and Betsy Talbot of MarriedWithLuggage.com.
This is Christopher Meeker, author of Hawthorne, Chronicles the Brass Hand.
This is Mickey Wonderland, steampunk fairy princess of Wonderland with a fresh cup of Mad Hatter tea.
Hi, this is Margaret McGraw, author of the prompt writing blog WritersSpark.com, and you're listening to Talk of the Tavern.
Hello, this is Mishkin from Bird Eats Baby.
This is Nim Derringer of Airship Hypatia.
This is Painless Parker. This is Persephone Burroughs Dimebagger, co-captain of the Airship Hypatia.
This is Psyche of Psyche Corporation.
Ahoy, me darlings. This is Misty Massey, author of Mad Kestrel, and you're listening to Talk of the Tavern.
I'm Ellie Ann from Steampunk Homes, author of Slice of Life and The Silver Sickle. Hope you enjoy the show.
This is Captain Jared Cornwall of the Melanie Rose.
Hi, this is Lucy Luminos with Tinker the Web Series.
This is Travis Fessler, the steam-powered circus freak from the Pickled Brothers Circus.
This is Scott Norman of The Wars of Other Men.
I'm Mr. Cat of the Cat in Black.
And we're back. I tried to get a thumbs up from Mo, but Mo is busy. Are you being creative over there?
I'm good.
Are you being artistic?
I was trying to be.
You can continue to be. It's okay.
No.
Oh.
I enjoyed this too much.
I just talked to Elizabeth, the pickle lady. She said she's watching the show for her class.
Oh, yay.
Really?
Ooh.
Nice.
What class?
All right.
Is she teaching third graders today?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll ask her later if I can.
Usually it's elementary school in Queens, New York that she's teaching, so it'd be interesting to.
Oh.
And I'll make sure to watch my language.
Oh no, she's waiting for her class.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so
showing it to the class. Let's talk about all the terrible adult things that we want to talk about.
Time for some education, kids. Okay, so we are about to hear your what seems to be a very strong opinion of Orville Episode 3, which to define it for the viewers, Orville
that haven't
Episode
seen it,
3, basically there is a single gender species that one of the officers on board is, and they identify as male, is married to another male. They have a child, and the child is hatched actually, I guess, as a female. So the thing this species does is takes the female in to, while still a baby, have it changed to a male, surgically. So, there's the basis. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, do you want to start, Sylas, or do you want me to start?
You're muted.
I think you're still on mute.
You're on mute.
Happens every show. It's all good. No?
Nope.
Nope.
No?
Apparently your computer doesn't want you talking about this.
Well, I tell you what, while you figure this out, Sylas, I'll start talking. But feel free to interrupt me if you figure this out. So...
Oh, you're good now.
For me...
Speak a little there.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're good now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Weird.
We are.
So... Cool. Okay. I'll take the start. My main problem with the episode is it does a similar thing that Star Trek: The Next Generation did with the whole single gender, only one thing, which is it enforced so many rules. It relied on a lot of kind of old stereotypes, especially specifically stereotypes of men. There were a couple of moments that I really thought could have been much better, but were at the very least moving towards something interesting, like the fact that the main person on the staff, their partner, was born female and had this surgery done to them. The big thing is everybody kind of makes it a trans issue, and they even talked about trans, they use the word trans in the episode, but it's really more of an intersex issue, and it's an issue that actually still happens throughout the world, which is that recently, within the past 2 to 3 years, this has been outlawed in America, but there are intersex babies born with ambiguous genitalia that have been operated on by doctors without parental consent, and in some cases, without parental knowledge. And this is a thing that, like I say, it happens, and it's happening within a community, and the intersex community is different from the trans community. You can be intersex and trans, but you don't necessarily have to be one to be the other. And so for this, it kind of just rang as a weird parallel that they were trying to do, because they used a lot of examples if they've got I think a cleft, is that the word? Yeah, then you'd operate on that. And also this is sort of the mentality that they have that they've expressed in Iran. My friend Puya immigrated here from Iran, and this, luckily, she didn't have to deal with this, but she's been very open about it, and she was in a wonderful play about this horrendous topic where at one point, what's his name? The leader of Iran, when he visited New York, he essentially said that we have no homosexuals in Iran, and it was met with laughter. And the reason that he's able to say that and it's enforced is because if they find people engaging in a homosexual relationship, specifically two men engaging in a homosexual relationship, they force one of them to have sex reassignment surgery. And that's a whole other hotbed of issues. And I feel like they really started to go in a place with the episode, but they didn't go far enough. And Seth MacFarlane has such a track record of being crap to trans people that in his other properties that it's very hard to kind of give him a pass, in my opinion, on that. Sylas, I'm sorry if I kind of took a lot of it, but yeah, if you want to.
No, that's okay. I think, and this speaks both to, I think, the Star Trek episode, which with the single gender species, and to this as well. The advantage of science fiction is allegory, right? So you want to talk about
Toei.
We're saying goodbye to Toei. And welcome, Goblin. Yes, it will be interesting. Toei, have a great day. We'll see you again later. Silas, go on. Sorry about that.
All right. So you have a medium in which you use allegory to talk about things. So like robots instead of, racial discrimination or something like that, which it can be really good. But when you get into the murky waters of our society's understanding of what sexuality is, what gender is, what's bodies, allegory gets dangerous. So in the Star Trek episode with the single gender species, they weren't trying to make an episode about transness. They were making an episode about being gay. And they used gender as a different alien version to talk about it. And then in this, you have a story that is, I think, as Ashley put it, sort of about like the surgical intervention and that kind of thing, but it's also about prejudice against women. The whole point that they've chosen to make their society male, they say men are smarter, men are bigger, men are better at all these things. And at the end, they have a trial and they bring in this woman who's been hidden away by her family. And she's written like the best, most beloved book in their society or something like that. And to prove that women are not less intelligent and less wonderful than dudes, which is an interesting story. But now you've muddied it with this conflation of genitalia and gender. You've developed a society that has a different relationship to gender, but it's entirely artificial and based on prejudice. So they're not naturally a single gender species. So it doesn't actually speak to what it's trying to talk about. It's a better episode if you want to talk about prejudice against women. And biological prejudice, but it doesn't work. And then they say things, the crew around this, this male, single gender male alien who has this child and doesn't know what to do about it. They are the ones who come to him and say, well, transness, let's have a debate about what it means to be trans. And you're going to make your baby be trans by operating on her, which is also not true. You can change someone's genitals however you want. Their gender is still going to be their gender as they understand it. So it projects this really weird message about both what it means to be trans and also like what it's okay to impose upon someone else with your idea of gender. And I really feel like it was an episode that was made with no research and not talking to any trans people and not understanding what it really means. And so it came off very odd to me.
Mo?
So I have not seen this Orville episode. So I'm not going to try to speak to that, but I have seen the Next Generation episode. And for all its faults, and there are faults in it, it is still one of my favorite episodes. And I don't mean that as in like, and if you know me, I love Star Trek. I've watched all of the series of Star Trek, all of the reboot, all of the web series Star Trek. I have shaken Tom Haverford's hand. And I was just like, I couldn't recognize him the entire weekend until finally he was like listing off things. And he was like, oh, and I play Spock. And I was like, oh, hi. I know where I see you before. But it's one of those things. I love it. And it's not that love that makes me love it, although definitely part of it. I love that it offered such a huge stage to explore these topics, whatever topic it ends up being. And that means when I talk about being non-binary, somebody thinks to themselves, there's a Star Trek episode about that. Then we can open up, since I've seen it and they've seen it, we can open it up for discussion, and we have a common ground to start from. Is it correct? Is it entirely right? Is it the best starting point? Maybe not. But I love that it's there. It means there's a step that I don't have to take their hand and lead them across. And again, I haven't seen the Orville, so I can't speak on that one. But I really love being able to just be like, it's wrong, but I love that it's there. It offers so much to me, even by being wrong. And Andrea, you had your hand up.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to let you finish your point. I want to give my point of view of the episode.
Okay.
Which I see everybody else's. I never thought of it that way. So it's a different way to look at it. This is what I got from it. Yeah, it dealt with, a female. They didn't want the female baby. They wanted it to be male. What I got from it is this can be looked at as society, anything, whether it's skin color, gender, it's what the society says is right. And that's what I got, that this one society said, oh, you can't be this, you have to be this, so change.
As we mentioned, societal definition.
Yeah. Whereas the outside societies are like, no, you should be happy with who you are. Let them decide when they're older. That's what I got from it. But it could be, it doesn't have to be the genitalia of the child. It could also be the skin color or the religion. I think it could apply to all kinds of things.
And this very well may be one of those things that we discussed earlier, that idea of something that's problematic, but people get the right message from it. So, and that's fine. But especially where Sylas and I went into it with a very specific lens, it's like, right. I can't unsee now. And it is one of those things where I think, because I have talked to a lot of people that praised it, that really enjoyed it for the fact that they're like, wow, okay, no, and also the ending, they ended on kind of a downer. They ended on a, they go with it, and it's just they as the crew have to leave. Sorry for spoilers. But it's, so there's something to be had there. And even if that is okay, now we're getting further discussion about it and what are some real life analogs. And if they are, a lot of these other real human rights violations, great. But it feels very much like a lot of people are like, this is a trans story, and it's just, I don't agree. I feel like it's just Seth MacFarlane using buzzwords. So
I may see it different because I'm not seeing it as a trans person.
So that's really interesting to me that was sort of your takeaway, because one of the things that I always think about especially when I'm consuming media for Is It Transphobic, is how are people without the extensive knowledge base going to perceive this? And my fear is always, I look at everything that's wrong. I look at this thing where the crew is equating genitalia with gender, and they're saying you're going to turn your baby into a trans person if you change their genitalia. And I'm thinking, oh, every person who doesn't know what transness is going to watch this, and they're going to walk away and say, this is what it means to be trans. So it's encouraging. It's nice to hear that your takeaway was this really nice message, because that makes me feel good. And I might not have gotten it from it, but that other people are getting it from it makes it a little bit better for me.
Oh, yay me.
But,
good job.
But you're all right. Different people are going to walk away with different messages. Some of them positive, others, with the trans lens. Some are going to walk away going, well, trans is a negative thing now. And others are going to be like, no, I'm relating because I'm being forced into something. So, yeah, everybody's going to get their own message from it.
think I'm hoping that because of it, people see that society isn't always right. and it'll bring apart to allow people to be who they are and not force it upon them.
That is where everybody's up voting on their phones. Watch that episode.
So this isn't from the Orville. This is from Next Gen.
Uh-huh.
One of my other favorite episodes is the one, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's the one where it's the planet that's about to be consumed by a supernova, and so they beam up the best scientist, but he's about to be 70, and so they have the death day at 70, and you had to decide whether or not they keep him alive past his society's decision of dying at 70 so that he could save everybody with his knowledge, or if they, respect the traditions of the planet and they go along with sort of this death day, like, we don't want you to go into palliative care or anything, so you get terminated at 70, but all of that knowledge is lost. And the thing about that episode was it also ended on a low note for the team, but it for the crew, but it almost like it ended on a high note for the guy that died.
Yeah.
For the guy that went along with the ritual, because he found his own sort of strength in going with what society had actually told. Like, at first he was like, no, I need to save it. And then at the end he was like, no, I need to respect tradition, because that's what's going to... And again, just one of those things, it's a great stage to start a topic. Whether it's right or wrong, but start a topic. But that's what I'm thinking of when you guys are talking about these, is because I haven't seen Orville, so I'm thinking of all these Next Gen.
Yeah, it's like, let's talk more about Next Gen.
Love Next Gen, man.
Or the last 4 seasons of Deep Space Nine.
Oh, I love Deep Space Nine so much, like religion and morality.
I need to start. I still haven't seen it. I still haven't finished Next Gen, honestly.
DS9 gets better after the 3rd season.
Yeah, if you can't take the first 2 seasons, start halfway through season 3. And just pick it up and pick up the backstory as you gather it if you just can't get through the first 2 seasons. Because
I actually enjoyed the first 2 seasons as well. It's one of those things everybody tells me I hated those, and I'm like, I enjoyed them, but I think it's just my overall love of Star Trek.
It's okay. It's just not my favorite.
I was told the same thing about the first 2 seasons of Next Gen. Just skip them, and it's just like, no, that's not how I do. But yeah,
they were definitely learning their characters the first 2 seasons in both series. Yeah, they don't start as a complete character. They start as somebody acting like this character.
Well, going on all of what we just discussed, I have a question.
And we
Since
do
the
have
show
mode
is
stories too.
It's okay.
So
we don't get to the stories.
But go on, Andrea.
No, one question, and then I'm done. This is one I wanted to say for the 3rd hour. Since the show is trans right, what is one right you believe is lacking for the trans community that you'd like to see, happen?
Yeah.
There's so many. How do I choose?
Yeah, no, there. Yeah.
Well, one that is like true. Something. It's
Mo.
This is going to sound crazy, and I hope this comes across the way I want it to.
Good luck.
Thanks. But I think you see it a lot in other either oppressed or formerly oppressed sort of brackets of society, but the idea that a trans person can have a sort of freedom of speech where nobody is judging the entire community anymore based on this one interaction, where I can say something and I don't have to worry about that person deciding all trans people are bad because I said one little thing. Because it's something that the freedom of speech for, and I'm going to use the white male, I'm sorry, Travis.
Use me.
But the idea that my dad says something horrible. Mm-hmm. He says it on accident. He says it in jest. He realizes he said it and it was bad afterwards. And people are like, oh, there's lots of people, I can excuse that. There's lots of white people. I know enough white people that one experience doesn't damage all of their other friends. It's not something that suddenly they think about that one experience every time they talk to every other white male friend that they have. Now, someone who's black, and my dad made that that will just pile on to the horribleness. But another white male will be like, man, we all do it. Whereas if me as a trans person says something and I say it on accident, suddenly it's like I have the weight of the community on my shoulders, like, oh gosh, I need to make this right immediately because I don't want that person to take that experience to every other trans person they ever meet and say, you're all like that. And so I'd love to have that same, we're all human and we all make mistakes mentality about what I say and what I do.
You're an asshole doesn't mean everybody in that is.
Community or niche or bracket or however you want to say it is an asshole. And that's a freedom that I always feel I lack.
And we did have a comment from the Green Goblin when asking what one right would you like to see, and Green Goblin says proper health care. So.
Yep, I can second that. Mm-hmm. Specifically, and this isn't my answer, but specifically piggybacking off of Green Goblin's answer, not only proper healthcare, but also healthcare from healthcare professionals that are knowledgeable about trans issues. Not only is that hard to find, I've talked with a number of people in the medical industry, and there are times where they do trainings, and there are still medical professionals who equate transness with pedophilia. And it's just like, and it's one of those things that A, no, and B, like, that's, if you're going in assuming that you're treating a pedophile when this person is literally just a trans person, just a person off the street.
Yeah. I don't see the connection myself, and you don't need to explain it.
I don't mind going into. Okay. No. It's more because of the idea of people view transness as sexual deviance. They've said this about gay people in the 80s and until now. They've said this about this was used as a way to turn people against Jewish folks in Nazi Germany. Very much that idea of like, this person is othered, this person is different, we want people to dislike them. We'll say that they're pedophiles, and like inherently. So like, your existence is sexual. Your existence as a gay person is sexual. Your existence as a trans person is sexual, and therefore you're existing and showing yourself off to children, so you're being sexual to children. And it kind of stuck for, again, a lot of different communities.
Good news.
Yeah.
It didn't stick here. So, well, the point is, there are other people out there who absolutely are like I was, kind of confused by how does that connect? And that's a good thing that some people are like just oblivious to that concept. So,
yeah.
Silas?
I also would say the ability to have your official documents updated, changed, the system to have a name change, to have a gender marker change is difficult, confusing, time-consuming, and very expensive. And it's like a tax, basically, on being trans. I was just talking to a friend the other day, and he was asking, what was going on, and I was trying to explain this process to him, and he was blown away. He could not imagine that it would be so difficult and so expensive just to have your official documents say your real name and your gender marker, and then you have to publish it in a newspaper after you do it. It's crazy. Yeah.
Whoa.
So,
what?
I am technically a employee of a Pizza Hut down the street. I have never worked a day.
What?
I am in their roster. I am in their employee thing, blah, blah, blah. There's this lovely form called an I-9. And it has to do with your Social Security and the tax and blah, blah, blah. And are you actually allowed to work in this country or in this state? Mm-hmm. Well, it asks, have you had a name change? And I'm like, oh, yes. I've had one of those. Everyone has one of those. I got one of those. So I click the little yes. And then the next box is, what was your previous last name? And then I'm like, it's the same. I've never changed my last name. Yeah. And there is no box to have a previous first or middle name. And so they have never been able to file that report. So they haven't been able to actually take me on as an actual employee, nor have they been able to take me off as an employee.
So this is keeping you from work. This is keeping you from a job because of and kind of piggybacking off that really quick too. A lot of people, and I've talked to people about the process for name change, and it took me much longer than it should have. But the process and money aspect of it is something that is a very real problem. Like I've talked to people that are like, oh, well, I got married and, I changed my last name and it was $20 or something. And it was just like, yeah, it's different when you get married. And it also, and we tried to do the like, all right, well, I haven't legally changed my name before the wedding. We ended up doing that beforehand anyway, but like, like I hadn't changed my name legally. We looked into it. I can't change my legal first name as part of the marriage. It has to be last name. So
it's literally just there so that you can take your partner's name or I think you can get like a combined name together. It's not there for anything else. You can like revert back to a previous maiden name you had if you wanted, but
I have had a name change twice in my life. When I was 10, my mother remarried, and my birth name, Joseph Travis Wilson, was legally changed with the adoption of the stepfather to Travis Ian Campbell. When I was 25, I was tired of family names that I had no relation to. That stepfather disappeared after 6 months. I had no connection to birth family on either side, so I went to change my name legally. It was this easy. I walked into a courtroom, paid $35, filled out a form. I had to wait 1 month and publish it in the paper, and now my name is Travis Ian Sivart. $35, 1 month. And the 1 month was a waiting period while the judge looked it over and made sure I wasn't a criminal trying to change my name for nefarious reasons, or I wasn't trying to be called Cher or Madonna or something like that because they're a
Count Chocula.
Figure. Yeah. So yeah, it's a little unfair that it's so easy for me.
Well, mine actually went more like Travis's did, and I didn't have to make any announcements or anything, so I didn't have to pay for that either. So mine was just walking in. How did I do it? I filled out the form online, and I walked into the downtown, city records building, and I handed it over, and I gave them, I think it was like $50, and that was it. I waited a month, and I got the papers in the mail, and that was the end of it.
Ashley?
Well, I'm still in the researching it part, so I don't know.
I mean, it's one of those things that does vary state to state, and particularly for New York, you do need to publish that you had your name changed. If you can talk to the judge, it can. It's because honestly, I think it's because if you are getting your name changed for like, I don't know, because you're skipping out on taxes.
Right. I think it's an outdated law to stop people from escaping creditors.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Or,
Well, then you have to go through all of the crazy of making sure all of the different credit companies have your new name. That was the part I hated.
But they have your socials, so.
They do, but you have to tell them that you've changed your name. And the problem is, so there's 3 main credit companies. One of them you send to, they'll send it to the other 2, but then you actually have to let them know that they've been sent the stuff from the other one. Like Equifax is like the main one or whatever it's called. And so you send it to them, and then you have to they actually will send all the updated information to all the other ones. So make sure you go to the one that is the main one. But then you actually have to call each of the other ones and be like, so I changed my name, and you will be getting the paperwork from a third-party source. And you feel like you're like stealing someone's identity because it doesn't feel like any official at all.
I love the accent you use when you call official people.
Obviously, I have to use it. So,
Ashley, you were trying to say something.
It's easier to steal an identity.
I think I got through. Let me just plug SCOWL really quick. The show that I'm doing over the summer. This is not the logo. This is a picture of a proof of concept that we did. This is my friend Rachel punching me in the face.
Amazing.
I love that photo.
Yep. Rachel is going to be a part of this. She's going to be my tag team partner. And basic idea of the show is it's not a pro wrestling match, but it's totally based on pro wrestling structures. It's queer centric, and it is going to be part of the Trans Theater Fest at the Brick in July, and we're going to put it up on YouTube. So don't worry if you contribute if you're from not Brooklyn. Don't worry, you can still have a part in this.
Excellent.
It's going to be awesome.
Yep.
It sounds fun.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yep. Sylas is playing a character named Kyle Oren, which I don't know if anyone on this panel has really gotten the joke yet.
I haven't.
I get it.
Thank you.
Splendid.
Kyle Oren is a force to be reckoned with.
Kylo Ren. It's a play on Kylo Ren.
Gotcha. See, I should have got it. I was stuck on Oren. It sounds like a dwarf name to me.
Yeah.
See, I had 3 different things going on in my head, because on the one hand I had like Oren High School Host Club, and then on the other hand I had like Kylo Ren, and then on another one I had like Niall Horan. So
Well, a force to be reckoned with, the Force.
I know it was that one, but like I was like, is it really? Am I missing something? There's 3, so I'm just gonna go with it.
For legal reasons, he does not have the Force. That is not a thing that we own, but he is a force to be reckoned with.
Space wizards.
Yes.
Space wizards.
There you go. So you're going pre.
I'm gonna get Ashley to give me a cloak.
Possibly. I haven't met with the costumer yet. We're waiting to see if we can pay him.
Actually, I have a lot of opinions.
Andrea.
I think it's story time, Mo.
Oh.
You don't have to tell the stories if you don't want, but they're
Oh
adorable
no,
stories.
but which one do you want? Which one?
You know what?
Which one do you want?
Oh, I like the stinging hairy leg one because you
Oh,
sing for that.
I was going to say start with the church lady. They're both great stories.
Let's start with the church lady.
Okay.
This is the anime porn story. So I went to Britain for a semester. It was wonderful. I enjoyed every bit of it. Just to give a little bit of heads up, before I went, was when I really came out to my mom, and she was like, well, while you're over there and nobody knows you, nobody has any backstory on you, try out your gender. She was like all for it. And I was like, I've never been, either side of the spectrum. I've always been me. It's just one of those things where finally we found a word for it. And so it was almost like once I found a word for it, then people had a problem with it. But it was, I went and I was me, and it was great. I went everywhere. Not everywhere. I have lots of beautiful images. I was nominated International Student of the Year. I had to give a presentation. It was great. A wonderful time came back. A little bit different. Still me, but just more comfortable being me, more outward being me. So my church has this seniors and retirees Senrets group. And they were like, you went to Britain. You were there for a while. You took pictures. Can you please give us a presentation on it? I was like, awesome, cool. I can do that. Kept getting pushed off, blah, 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 blah. Well, I show up. And there are all these lovely little old church ladies, as well as old church men. And they're all a little bit round in the center. And they're all like balanced in their chairs and everything. And one lady is going on about her date. She had a date the night before, and everyone's like, oh, and what did you wear? And she's telling them, her nice new matching, when you go to the old people section of the store and they have all those like matching, not jumpsuits, but like nice clothes where it's like church people clothes, but they're like a top and a bottom that are both mauve purple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those things.
Where
So
Nancy
she's
Reagan
talking
used to
about
shop.
that. Sure. Sure. But she's talking about what she wore. She's talking about what they ate and where they went. And she was sort of just like, she was saying it so nonchalantly, like she doesn't really want to talk about it, but she will because people are asking questions. And finally, it's time for me to give my presentation. I give my presentation. I do an amazing job. I'm really good at talking in front of people. Anyway, we get to the end. And I hit end slideshow, and just because I am me, I exited out of the window. Mind you, this is big on the like side of the church building. It's huge on the side. People can see it from like outside the windows, and all these old people in the audience. And it's Yuri on ice, Victor and Yuri kind of in a compromising position. And I'm like, and there's a murmur going, and I'm like messing with my laptop trying to get something to show up. I finally end up opening up like Internet Explorer to cover up, and I'm just like, and of course my background has a bunch of different gay backgrounds, ranging from like New Game to Yuri on Ice to Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. So many of them would have been better than that one background. It had to be that one. And there's this murmur going on, and I'm turning red, and I'm just like, nope, we're unapologetic. And so that lady who had her date, she stood up, and I'm talking like, you know how ladies usually like they stand kind of like this? No, she stood straight up. My date was with a woman.
Aww.
Happy ending.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's really sweet.
How the old lady came out to the church. Visibility. Yes. And I was so proud. And yeah, that's that story. It's a wonderful little
great
story. I'm so happy right now.
That's really sweet.
It has all the elements. It has a love theme. It has excitement, adventure, foreign countries. It's great.
It's got porn.
And porn.
And porn.
And Yuri on Ice porn. That's
I know.
Yeah.
I've watched the entirety of Yuri on Ice twice since this semester ended, just because I needed to pick me up. It's been wonderful. One of them was my mom and I watching it from about 9 p.m. at night all the way through the night. And she sat there, and every time something happened, I went, "It's gay!" And she went, we know!
Yes! Stop commentating!
And I would just scream it at the top of my lungs. And she was like, I know. We're the only people here. And I'm like, the whole community needs to know! So anyway, it's great.
Call the neighbors! It's gay!
Exactly. We have a really nice neighbor on that side. And then we have a really strange but nice neighbor on that side. He's like a college professor. But the thing is, his house is like teeming with children most of the day because his wife runs a daycare. And you can't tell. He has like 4 kids. But all of the kids that show up over there look the same. So you can never tell which 4 kids are his 4 kids. Because it's like, she runs a daycare for all of the like cousins. And you're just like, are you actually related to Jesse? And the kid's like, no. And I'm like, okay, let's go, whatever. I'll walk away now. Because they like to go through our creek. They like to pick up the lizards and the snakes and stuff in the creek.
Everybody's got to eat lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell your Hairy Lake Baptist singing?
I can. All right, so we're going back to
musical.
It is.
Oh, if you don't want to hear it, I can shut up.
I'm fascinated now.
Do it. Go for it.
Good story.
We're gonna go back to middle school. That Baptist middle school. So I had to explain this last time, but there are chapel days at Baptist middle school. Chapel days are a day where like the first 3 hours of the day, and not the whole 3 hours, but the first hour of the day is dedicated to worshiping and singing to God. And so it takes about 3 hours to actually do it because you're corralling a whole bunch of children into a room to sit still and sing for a while, and then corralling them back to their classrooms. So it takes about 3 hours in actuality, but it's only like an hour of sitting still and singing. And I was large enough that for the most part of that entire time in middle school, I was not forced to wear the female chapel uniform, which was a white blouse with a Peter Pan neck with short sleeves. Yes, it was so thin when you bought it from the catalog that you could see your undergarments through it. So everyone was told you had to wear a t-shirt under it.
Just
that was its own problem.
And better material. I'm sorry, not you, but like
the catalog.
Sell what are you doing?
The catalog was for
Baptists?
Like little tiny children. And that's a whole different story. We had one guy that during like PE, we would be like running, and he would make up some excuse to not run, and so like everybody running by, he'd try to guess their bra color, and that was its own sort of horrible. But anyway, back to chapel. So you would also have a skirt. Now I was tall and I was pudgy. I was large, which meant the little catalog for school uniforms didn't have my size. So if I did buy my clothes from there, they were inappropriate for chapel anyway, because the skirt would come like above my knee instead of below it, and the shirt would be so tight that you could definitely see everything through it. And it had its own problems. And so very, very soon after I started there, I actually got the ability to wear the men's uniform, because we could find that in my size in like the regular menswear. And so I actually wore the men's chapel uniform for almost the entirety of that time. But in 7th grade, we had a new person in charge, and I was told I had to wear the girls' uniform. We had to go find it. It was at some old lady place. We went and found the navy blue pleated skirt and the white shirt, and was like, okay. But 7th grade, I stopped shaving my legs, because Travis pointed out I must be bad at it, because it was a bloody mess after I shaved my legs. And everybody's like, that's not how it's supposed to work, but that's how it worked. I had like blood everywhere after I shaved my legs, and it was just not worth my time. So I didn't anymore. Now that means I'm walking in after about a year of not shaving my legs with nice hairy legs. Like, yes. Because I've always had I've had the ability to grow hair the entire time of living. My dad is one of those like mountain men with like
perfect description.
I was gonna say, I feel like you just described a bird person, but I'm with you. Yeah.
More like a bear person, but yes. And so I'm sitting there, and I don't sit ladylike. And so I'm sitting there with like my leg up across. You can't see it, but my leg up across, one foot on my knee, sitting there at chapel. I mean, you're in pews, no one can see anyway. And my friend reaches over and starts stroking my leg. This is Michaela. This is that one friend that is straight out of all of this.
And
she starts running her hand.
Preacher minister's daughter.
Yes, and the preacher minister's daughter. She's my best friend. She starts running her hands up and down my leg, just in the middle of the church chapel hall. Hairy legs. Need to shave them. Hairy legs. Need to shave them. Up and down and up and down. Really quiet. Now, that would be the end of the story, except Baptist churches, especially this one, have sort of upbeat songs where you like raise your hands and you're supposed to sing out loud to the Lord, or you have all these really different melodies going on. And Michaela, being the music minister's daughter, knew every single melody. And so she matched it to the melody. And you've got hairy legs and they need a shave. And you've got hairy legs and you need to shave. Hairy legs, hairy legs, hairy legs, you need to shave. And we get to the end of one, and then I'd turn and look at her like, what the heck? And she'd hear the first 2 notes of the next song, and she knew it from heart already, and she gave this big grin, and she'd start again. Up and down. It was a wonderful thing. And now every once in a while when we're watching a really good movie, and her dad does piano students. I'm reminded of this. It happened just the other day. We were over there on a Friday. Her father has piano students throughout the day. And so you start, and she remembers one of them. She remembers one of the songs that was that day, and she reaches over and she smacks my leg really hard and goes, "Your legs are still sherry."
Sherry.
Yes, I was going to say need shaving, but I went with hairy, and it didn't work. They're sherry.
It's hairy shaving, it's sherry.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
If they could turn back time.
But it was one of those things.
Hairy legs.
I like my hairy legs now. They're nice. Back then, it was one of those things where it's like I liked them because they felt right, but everybody had to make a comment on them. It was like, well, shouldn't you be shaving? And I'm like, do you want blood everywhere? So, it was fine.
End of story time.
Yeah, that's the end. If you want any more of my stories, I've got 5 published works under the names Mix Know-It-All and Morven Moeller. They're not like memoirs. They'd be funnier if they were memoirs, but they're fiction.
Where are they available at?
They are available at Dreampunk Press's Facebook page. If you buy them from there, you get them with a lovely signature. Or you can buy them on Amazon. I just get less money that way, but I understand the need.
Yeah, but shipping. Yeah, no.
Exactly. Because you have to pay for shipping if you get it from us.
Yeah. But it's worth it. It's worth it to pay more so that you get more.
Because I give you a signature. I sign it. I touch it. I fondle it. I mean, I don't do any of that.
But what if I want you to?
Yeah.
That costs extra.
Like, can we pay like
$3
extra?
$2 hours so I can mention it, right?
Yeah.
So I actually have a Kickstarter coming up on June 1st for my newest project, which is a book. But it's a graphic novel based on my experience with my dying grandmother who had dementia, Alzheimer's, and ultimately she died of lymphoma in the brain. She had like lymphoma freckles throughout her entire brain that they all grew into tumors and she was squished out of existence. So I'm doing a graphic novel. You can follow it on Facebook.com/Thementia or fb.me/Thementia.
Spell Thementia.
Thementia. ThemenSha.
Okay. Go on.
And so I'm putting together this, and it's going to be a Kickstarter, but the Kickstarter is sort of going to act as a pre-order because I want to get them in color. To get them in color, I have to buy in bulk. So I'm trying to get sort of a pre-order together so I can use that money to buy a bunch of them in color instead of posting it or getting a bunch in black and white, which is going to look not as good.
Mediocre.
Yeah.
Mediocre. So it's going to be launching June 1st. Not to take away from yours, which launches tomorrow at noon. Indiegogo. Go, go, go. But when you... Yeah.
Is SCOWL an acronym, by the way?
Okay.
And then Mo, I want to go back to
and I don't mean to jump in on. Okay, let me say this. Yes. So the only reason, and the only reason that we don't necessarily say what the acronym is for is because we don't. The way that the New York Boxing Commission, essentially, we don't want them to believe, because it is absolutely not a professional wrestling match, but they rule over professional wrestling, amateur wrestling, and boxing. Uh-huh. And this is a piece of theater. This is a stage thing. So we just don't want them to necessarily get the wrong idea and think that this is not anything but that. But essentially, hypothetically, one possible definition of it could be stage combat oriented wrestling league. Another one could be scary cobras only will live. I mean, that's one.
That's what
there's
I
also
first.
Better.
I mean, there's also something courageous of walruses' livers. I mean, that's a weird one, but yeah, like that's a potential one.
What you're saying is, hypothetically, there are lots of acronyms that any word could be.
Absolutely. Like steampunk conventions only with liquor.
Okay, no, I like that one. That's your next event. You can use the same bill and put it out there.
Just put some gears on it.
Yeah, just throw some gears on it.
Just glue them.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah.
Okay, Mo, what's your graphic novel about? Because that's very important, very much ties into the topic we're discussing today.
My graphic novel is about, it covers dementia awareness, Alzheimer's awareness, LGBT acceptance, and family values. And I mean family values as in like the closeness of a family, especially before or after a major event. And it's the idea, Lee is an agender character like myself because I'm basing it very heavily off of my own experiences. And so Lee is a agender character who has always found the most support through their grandma. And grandma's going through a major change. And so it is 120 pages of, or about 90 pages of graphic novel, and then there will be thank you pages, memorial pages, and you know, the other works at the end of the book. And so I'm looking forward to finishing that because I'm actually posting a whole bunch about like the actual process of it right now. I'm drawing between 1 and 2 pages a day for the month of May and the month of June. So I'm very tired, but it's working and I'm going to do it. But on the whole fondling of books, for $5.
Yeah.
For $5. I'm sorry, actually, $5 is for the memorial page. For $10 more, so you give to the Kickstarter at a certain amount to get either the digital edition of the book, the print edition of the book, or a fancy edition of the book, or with fancy extras. Edition. Yes. The fondled edition is $10 more.
All right. This is the one I'm going in for.
If you're getting any of the tiers that already come with a physical book for $10, you can leave a little inscription in my inbox and the correct spelling of your name, and I will touch the book. I will love the book, and I will sign the book in a personal manner just for you. So, just saying. Now, that might not be what it says on the Kickstarter because it's family friendly. Right. But like,
but for Talk of the Tavern,
use promo code Talk of the Tavern and
get your book bundled. Exactly.
Okay, now we are 9 minutes out. I am going to do a bit of a wrap up, and then we'll goof off till we play the outro music. I'm already looking for somebody for us to raid on Twitch. Just so you know, on Twitch, you can raid another streamer while they're live streaming. So it takes everybody from your audience and puts them in theirs, helps build community, etc.
Oh.
Yeah, and I look for people I like first, and then other people that I like their content second. So if I raid people, if you're my favorite, you're on top of the list. If I don't know who you are, but I like what you do, I definitely, you're second on the list. So Monday night on our usual 8 to 11 time slot at night, we have our planning session where we're going to be planning out the next couple months worth of shows, setting up guests, etc., as well as going over the ones we already have. Tuesday, I have Feline Lang, straight out of Germany, and her music on for the afternoon show. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all 1 to 4. Wednesday, we don't have a guest yet. I think Andrea and I get to sit in front of our PS4 and play Lego Dimensions for our amusement, and maybe somebody else will stop in.
Or maybe just dance.
Oh, yeah, we might do Just Dance. Whew. We won't do that for 3 hours. I guarantee it. But anyway.
So you won't just dance.
That's right.
We'll do other things then.
We'll dance and then take a nap.
Yeah.
And Thursday, I have Ben Henderson of Surrey Steampunk Connival out of the UK. And they do steampunk models, music, videos, hats, jewelries, etc. But they run a whole little convention over there in the UK, so we'll have them on. So it's going to be a really fun week, and I'm happy to say we are featuring a lot of our European friends next week. So join us for that. And as for who we're going to raid, let's see. Let's put it up for a little vote here. I think 3 people are live streaming right now that I follow. It's down to 2. So we have Lady Adarissa, who does gaming, and then we have Livy in the middle, who does some beautiful music. I think they have more viewers than Lady Adarissa, but I like their content because it's like her brother, and then a family friend that they've known since their childhood, and they all get on together and play live music, their own music, and it's just wonderful.
It's good.
I think we're going with that. It's now I do want to say, oh my God, thank you, all three of you for coming on and hanging out and being patient with us as we explore what is a sticky topic, no matter how you look at it.
And having a discussion, not an argument.
Next week, come back for the argument. Yeah, no.
That's when you have the wrestlers in their outfits, right?
Yeah.
At least part of their.
I am so excited.
Outfit.
Yeah.
And
Let's figure out a way to make this happen.
And,
all right.
and we will comically argue, oh, wrestling is fake, and you guys can defend it. It's real. And
you can't fake gravity, Travis.
Only gravity of tone.
Wow. All right. No, you got a good one in there. All right. I'm with it.
I need at least one a show, don't I?
Yeah.
So, we're going to raid Libby. So at this point in time, we've got about 5 minutes to hang out. And thank you for that 10 bits there. Grouchy, I think you forgot the exclamation point, so they didn't come across. There we go. Yeah, that's right. Pimp your stuff. I'm so glad pimp has become much more of a neutral term instead of a derogatory term the way it used to be. Because I don't know what else to use. Talk up your junk. I don't know. I know.
What?
Oh God, it went offensive.
That just wow. I feel like you should not scream that from a car, Travis. Hey, talk up your junk.
There we go.
What?
Oh, and
that's
since it was not mentioned, it was not mentioned before, and we have some new followers. If you are an Amazon Prime member, you can subscribe to our Twitch channel at no cost to you, but it gives us a little bit of money. Keeps us running.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and we're also aiming for when we get enough subscribers. We're only at 14 at this moment. But when we hit 25, we're going to do a tea party on a separate night. When we hit 50, we're going to do a children's story time where the first 2 hours I read my children's book as well as a few authors. In the third hour, put the kids to bed. We're getting naughty and horrible.
We're going to read the same children's book, but in a really disgusting way.
Absolutely.
Well, on one of our shows, we had someone reading, what was it? Some type of porn in the voice of Kermit the Frog.
That's great.
50 Shades of Grey.
It was 50 Shades of Grey.
And then he read Harry Potter / fic
fanfic
as Snape.
What?
Right?
That's amazing. Wow.
It's horribly offensive, terribly fun.
Yes.
When we hit 100 subscribers, we're going to do a 12-hour cat cam where we set up the camera and cat toy the room and catnip it, and everybody can watch our cats frolic.
Little red light.
Aww.
And when we hit 250, we're going to do a 24-hour marathon broadcast, which, Ashley, you might hear from me because it wouldn't hurt to bring people in to keep us awake.
We need more
so
people.
You can take a nap?
But we're going to do it in shifts.
I'm here. It's 24 hours. Just all right, Ashley.
Ashley, talk. You're good at this. But look at him drool. That mustache is really drooping now, guys.
Well, then you grab the cats, you hold them up and go, "It's catnap time."
Wake up covered with scratches. So yeah, good times. We've got a lot planned.
Hopefully they're from the cats.
Whatever. You know what? You fondle your book. I'll do my thing. Okay.
Okay.
And Camelus shows up right as we're going off. Camelus, good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
Speaking of a Twitch Prime person, right there, it's good to see you. You missed a great show, and but I don't know. I might talk Andrea into.
But you'll be able to catch it on the rerun.
Mm-hmm. I know it was fun, and we're in the last 2.5 minutes.
One last time, I'm going to put how you can find and follow all of our guests.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's up there.
Indiegogo launching tomorrow for SCOWL, which stands for Scurry Crabs on Wally's Lingleberry.
Otters. Throw otter in there somewhere.
Otters.
Okay.
How about on the O?
Probably for the O.
Spectacular
Stop taking
communist
my
otters
jokes,
will
Travis.
love.
Oh. There you go.
Yeah, right? No, it ended in a really nice way. Yeah,
Just waiting on your veto. What's that mean?
Yeah.
We're going to start the raid now and do some... That's what Camelus says. Just waiting on my veto. Probably during the 24-hour broadcast. We should have a veto button, huh? And we'll do the outro music here. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, but especially you three. Very much.
Thank you.
The discussion. discussion shenanigans tonight. You are the one thing that makes the show what it is. Don't forget to join us at the tavern next week. Until then, have fun, keep learning, and be good to one another.
Oh, closing
now,
toast.
raise your glass in good cheer.
Let's do a
Enjoy the
closing
small
toast
moments
here.
every
We'll talk over
day
the outro.
and steamy dreams every day.
Here's to exploring, education, and expanding